it's like a check-in sheet for like all the terrorists, like guarding the hostages. I took a screenshot of it, put it into GPT, and told it to like translate it for me. It's a fucking calendar. There's no names on it, no operation shit on it at all. It's just a calendar, right? So I don't know. Like I don't like yeah. We talked about like misinformation from like random crazes on Twitter, but I think when governments are doing it, I think that needs to be like addressed too. Shit pisses me off.
Um, sorry. 1 second. Just trying to get this. Oh my. Okay. Hold on. No, it's fine. It's fine. It's fine. Let's just do this. And then let's do this. All right. My face is on screen. Guys, gals, if you're anywhere else, you want to come back to my stream, it's cool. If not, that's fine too. But my stream is for now up for now. And bit of supporting the channel, helping us out. Doobie, sorry, I didn't get to engage with that. Yeah, everything is a fucking Hamas tunnel. Everything. Hamas is everywhere. Yeah.
That's why I brought up Operation Mockingbird, right? Was because, was to highlight that is that the government obviously does and has since its inception engaged in massive propaganda campaigns of misinformation to its citizens and to people abroad. And so it's like you can't if you give the government full unilateral like ability to determine what is and isn't misinformation, then what you give them is a monopoly on misinformation, right? If private companies are able to compete in being able to stop misinformation with, I don't know, AI checker software that's in a constant battle with AI, other AI programs and governments to determine who's got the better program. That's, what's better, producing, deep fakes, or the technology that's always right behind it in determining what is and isn't a deep fake and things like that. If the private market with community notes and things like that is in the business of trying to stop misinformation, well, they don't have a monopoly. But when you give the state the unilateral authority to determine what is and isn't that, then what you do is you give them the ability to create all the misinformation and propaganda they want. It's not like Israel's special.
If you want to respond to that, Doobie, you can. After that, we'll move on.
No, I agree with him. Actually, I think that yeah, this is going to exist. It needs a ton of oversight, and I don't think the government should be like immune from the community notes or whatever, or these like standards about misinformation. In fact, I think the government should be held to a higher standard. If it's learned that they're putting out misinformation intentionally, there should be like criminal consequences.
Good luck. I'm
Yeah,
with
good
you.
luck. Yeah.
Good luck.
Um, there is. Am I getting the right social media company here? No, it's Twitter, right? Twitter was saying that one of was it Al Jazeera was like state propaganda.
Yeah, that would just happen. Al Jazeera was a state propaganda thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
I mean,
like
that
it
makes sense.
does.
It is.
But and let's say you accept that. Okay, fine. But then like American outlets aren't labeled the same way. Like
Yeah, I mean, I still use Al Jazeera, but for that very reason. I think the idea that people get rid of propaganda or bias is very silly. But the cool thing about having multiple sources of state propaganda is that you do indeed kind of always get the statist opinion, and there's always going to be information you're missing. But like Al Jazeera is a great source of things that U.S. outlets won't say. Even if it is state propaganda, it absolutely is. I watch WION on YouTube often, even though they don't really agree with my my worldview at all. Right? I think it's a Indian outlet that does like it's like a CNN competitor or whatever. You should check them out on YouTube because it just gives me a different perspective, and it's like a news program that gives me stuff that I probably wouldn't find on regular U.S. outlets.
Just to touch on that before you move on, I want to say that also, like, if you talk about like state outlets, America is kind of unique when it comes to the idea that they don't trust state outlets, like at all, like in any capacity when it comes to like the media. Like, I know that Europeans poll fairly high, for example, that they trust their state news sources to at least be like maybe not necessarily unbiased, but at least be mostly accurate, like, right? So like people trust the BBC when they come on and have like a news program or something. They like feel like the government's doing the best, as opposed to like the United States where we're like, nah, it's all in cahoots, kind of thing. Like,
Yeah, I
Right.
mean,
That number should be
with
100% everywhere. Distrust
uh,
state outlets.
yeah,
The
I know
BBC is pretty good.
uh, I mean, yeah, okay, WYION.
I think it's WION. I think
W,
I might be wrong,
I,
but
let me
check.
know. I'll or like drop a link and I'll check it out.
Yeah, I'm just gonna grab it because it should show up. I mean, because I watch all the time. So
Thanks so much. All right, we'll move on to our next thing. I'd like to engage with you, DB, more on that topic, but I'll move on this one. Now. All right, the infamous Florida "Don't Say Gay" law has been used to fire a teacher for simply putting their preferred honorific in their email communications. This comes after a string of headlines detailing how teachers have been uh, fired for anything approaching non-standard gender expression. Do you think the Florida law and others like it are unconstitutional? Have they clearly revealed themselves to be anti-LGBT and bigoted? And should appropriate discussions about gender and sexuality be allowed back in Florida classes? So, we had a lot of discussions on this program when this was first proposed, before it passed, and then after it passed. The individuals here, certain individuals here, were for this law and told me it wouldn't expand. It did. And so I'd like to discuss it more. I'd like to see where they're at this point. And I'd like to yell at them. Those things. Let's make that happen. Right. Let's give me that birthday wish. So let's start.
can you name the individual that said it wouldn't expand?
I think we were. No, well, hold on. Don't worry. We'll go to that. We'll get to it. So we'll do intros first. Let's start.
Okay, because I was just making sure you weren't talking about me. All right.
Oh, I wasn't. Actually, I wasn't talking about you. Oh, but we'll go to.
He was talking about me.
friend Lactoid.
All right.
Yeah. So this is a tough one because in the article that you linked, it links to 3 other cases, 2 from Florida, 1 from Georgia. Sorry, and those 3 are all like very reasonable, right? Like reading a book that was not approved by the curriculum. Okay, I understand that. Playing a movie that was not approved by the curriculum, again, required. That was specifically required by the school district, and they refused to follow those rules. In Florida, one of the other ones they mentioned, she specifically discussed her sexuality with a bunch of middle schoolers, which was banned, right? You're not supposed to be doing that, regardless of what your sexuality is. So, she went in depth, described it, talked to all the kids. Some of the kids there made LGBTQ themed art, which she then took and posted up on her door. I think all of that is pretty clearly within the realm of this legislation. And then I guess in Georgia, whatever comparable legislation they have there. This specific case, the MX case, is particularly difficult because now the purpose of that specific legislation was to prevent instruction, right? But then in the expansion, they use a lot of that language, but they also specifically say the law is very clear. You can't use pronouns that aren't Mr. or Mrs. that correlates with your biological sex, except if you suffer from Klinefelter syndrome or a couple other chromosomal syndromes that might make that difficult. Now the question is, okay, it's not really an instruction at this point. Now it's a question of they are using this to refer to themselves. Is this appropriate to put on signatures when the school says, and the law specifically says that you're not supposed to? Now, I'm leaning towards, I think it probably should be allowed. I think the pronoun prohibition is pretty weird. I don't think it actually serves like a super valid interest. I wouldn't pass it. That said, obviously there's got to be some limitations on what we allow people to use as their pronouns when it comes to public employee.
My pronoun is
because
big
otherwise,
dick.
yeah, otherwise you could. I mean, I hate to like refer to the reductio ad absurdums, but we start getting into like, oh well, my pronouns are insert slur here, and we might all think it's a joke, but some people who are maybe protesting or subtly protesting the pronoun thing, they might do that as a challenge. And obviously, we can't have that, right? We can't have somebody walking in and saying, "No, I want you to refer to me as like the F slur." Well, hold on a minute. No, we can't. That's not acceptable for a school. MX, is that acceptable? Well, I think so, but now we've already established it's a political question as to what's an acceptable pronoun and what's not. And we've also already established that because it's public education, the government, which is the voters in this case, get to determine what that curriculum is and what the rules are for teachers. So it's a little bit of, I don't know how you would legally stop this. I think that actually the law probably could stand. Do I personally agree with it though? Not really.
Thank you. Let's go to our friend Scott.
Yeah, so I echo a lot of the sentiments of Lactoid, but I don't necessarily disagree with this extension or this usage. I would go further, but of course I want to abolish public schooling. But also I would say, we should bring back the Hatch Act of 1939 in its original interpretation. And just like if you're found to be a communist, you should just be immediately fired. If you're found to be a believer in queer theory, you should just be immediately fired. You have no place in the classroom to be teaching things that are designed to destroy Western society. And so the question is, well, can you determine all of that off of a pronoun? The answer is obviously not, right? Like there are people that, have the, are going to have pronouns that are different. They're just normal people trying, to exist in society. I mean, not fully, or, they would be trans, or they would just kind of accept their gendered pronoun and kind of move on if they were really trying to fit in. And so I think it's interesting because it's like, well, how effective is this? And Lactoid brings up a really interesting point, which is that there are these other egregious cases, and then this one is almost perfect. I think when you look at it, it's obviously lawfare. This is no different than the gay people going to 1,000 different weddings, trying to find one person that won't bake them the cake so that they can sue the person over and over and over again to try and get the laws changed to demand that art be used against them. And I think the article itself quotes this person. Quote, I have the ability to take the time right now to fight the fight. There are so many teachers who do not have the financial stability to take any time off. I am privileged enough to not need to live paycheck to paycheck right now. What good is privilege if you can't use it to help others? And she says multiple times that she did this intentionally to buck the system, that she did it intentionally to let her students know that they were in a safe space. And then she was asked politely multiple times, like, hey, hey, when school starts up next, don't do this. And then school started up and they're like, hey, you like next week, don't do this. And then the day of, they're like, hey, don't do this. This is technically against law. Please don't. And then she refused every step of the way because she wants a lawsuit. This isn't like some teacher that just got blindsided by a rule change or something. And she said that she had figured out that year that she was non-binary, and then she had figured out that she was, doing some self-exploration. Like you're clearly the law successfully found a woke propagandist that is trying to slip in political bullshit towards this LGBT community that has no fucking place in schools anyways, and certainly has no place in government-run schools where you don't have freedom of speech. You're a government employee. You don't have fucking freedom of speech, right? That's not how that works. I would love to get rid of the school system. So yeah, I think it's pretty clear that this is an instance of lawfare. That this person's not a victim. They did everything they could, hoping to get fired so that they could have this lawsuit for their new political goals to try and change this so that blue-haired people can come in and go, hello, class, I'm Zir. And you know what that means? I like my booty hole touch sometimes. Anyways, let's talk about physics. Like, that's exactly what the fuck they want. And so, like, I kind of think it's kind of base that this person got fired, even though it's over nothing but an email signature. And by the way, the email signature is bullshit. It's an online class, and this signature is used in text messages to students. It's used in all communications with them, and it's on the front page of their website that the student has to go to every day, right? Like, it's not like it's just like, I sent an email to another teacher and like it was my tagline. It's something that students are interacting with constantly in an online class. So yeah, that's how I feel about it.
Scott, you are a singular individual, right? There's nothing quite like you. So
I'm a
let's
special snowflake. All right.
Can someone clip that? What the little thing?
yes, the booty hole.
What are you
Yes,
talking? What are you talking about?
clip the booty
Nothing
hole.
stood out to me.
ahead.
Next, we'll go to our friend Corey Campbell, confirmed woke propagandist. If you would, please.
Absolutely. I don't know how to follow that, but I'll try. uh, okay. Well, so I don't disagree that this person might be like looking for a lawsuit, but I don't see that as a bad thing. Of like, if you want to challenge something, you should have the right to do that, and this might be their way of actually, whether intentionally or not, maybe intentionally trying to do that. I don't see a problem. And it's like, yeah, this seems to be, as stated earlier, the perfect case where like. Yeah, Lactoid brought up, I think the obvious, like there is some sort of line. We don't want the absurd, but here is I think the other end of like, does MX actually constitute like a title or a pronoun? Am I allowed to address myself as the Corey Campbell, or is that valid? I can't have that in my email signature, even though it'd be ridiculous. But like, I don't see any real harm in that. And I've never encountered MX until now in this article, but I could just be totally ignorant. But it seems like made up. Which is fine, but it's hard for me to see that as a title. And also, if in fact like you're following like the law, based off at least from what I see in the wording, don't you have to confirm that there's some sort of discrepancy between like their what their pronoun and how you perceive them to be in terms of their sex? Like you'd have to do some due diligence and prove that there's actually some sort of disconnect there. But to answer the specific questions in the prompt, I think it's unconstitutional. I mean, I'm not an expert. I'll probably defer to Lactoid, but it doesn't seem to be, considering that it's passed. But have they clearly revealed themselves to be well, pretty much, yes. I think they revealed themselves to be bigoted. I'll leave it there for now.
So just to be clear, MX. I mean, they all made up, so I don't know about that point. But MX is a pre-existing thing, and it's pronounced mix. And
it's originally a feminist creation, just for the record. It's originally a feminist creation to like, this like actually predates most Xeno pronouns. It's actually older than that. It's like, don't put me in a gender role that I'm a fucking woman.
Yeah. So it's just like a non-gendered title.
Yeah. Like I can totally recognize that I'm ignorant on that.
Do you know what the long form of it is, Prime?
No.
Mixter.
Really? I did not know that. Holy shit.
Don't lie.
That's news.
Don't lie. That's not real.
It's right here on Wikipedia. It sounds like a music streaming website. Mixter.
Yeah, it does.
It's the next Napster.
But I had only
gotta go next.
I had only heard of this like here on Twitch. You saw a person come on, Mix Vivian Wolf. But like I when I saw it, it's MX Vivian Wolf. But when I saw it, I didn't know what that was, so I assumed it was like supposed to be Miss, right? But then she would correct me, and she would say mix, and I didn't know what the fuck she was talking about. Like I don't know why she keeps saying that until she like pulled me aside. It's like, oh, I meant it's this, and I just had never heard of it. So yeah.
Yes, she with her pronoun that's not she or her.
I don't
Mixter Vivian Wolf, you get it right.
One of the most embarrassing moments was somebody kept correcting me, she, and I thought they were referring to the Chinese president. I'm dead serious, and I was just so confused, and I was like, what is? Yeah, Xi Jinping. Like, what does he have to do with this?
What does he have to do with this? This is the perfect response to being fucking told over and over again. She. What does he have to do with this?
Oh fuck. All right. Well, that was amazing.
This is off the rails tonight. Whatever. Fuck it.
Oh, certainly. This is off the rails. But like I love my friend Lactoid is so the internationally debate reminder. Like, of course you're talking about Xi Jinping, right? Of course you would talk about that.
Of course, yeah.
All right, Gibbs, please.
Yeah, I mean, so I feel like Fabian covered a lot of this with the lawfare kind of comment what I was going to say initially, but now that Mactoids brought this, so I'm just going to skip over all that for the funsies, right? And then I'm going to skip over that I think it was a backdoor way to get into the learning about the agenda. We're going to skip over all that for now, for my opening here. I'll tell you what I think, and I like on a personal level. Like this comes down like, I don't give a shit what people do behind closed doors, right? Whatever. And like, generally I feel like I'm a pretty nice guy in person. You want me to call you, whatever you want me to call you, I'll probably do it. Like if you want me to call you, anything really, I'll do it. Like it doesn't really bother me that much, right? However, that being said, I'm so sick of being forced to like I just accept like what seems like lunacy. Like I hate to say like the whole movement's lunacy, but when we're sitting here saying mixter is the like appropriate pronoun of like somebody like I'm sorry, I like I'm not gonna like I might call you that. And like, but I just like in a private or whatever, if that's what you want me to, or friends. But if we're in a professional setting, I like I'm just not going to say that. I'm just going to say your name directly. I refuse to do it. It seems like lunacy to me. Maybe I don't understand. Maybe that's my color of privilege. Whatever. I don't know. Like, however, but it's. I have a problem with this idea that we should be forcing people to do these things. Like, and if we don't, then we're now the bad guys. And that's a problem I have with this really.
Let's go to our friend Tiberius, please.
Yeah, this one's gonna be fun. I kind of regard this as the war of stupid shit, to be completely honest. Let me do the pronouns part because that's obviously the highlight reel of this. Like, okay, if someone comes to me and says, "Hey, look, I prefer like the pronouns that are like not normal, right? So we're not talking about he, her, she, them, or what, that kind of thing." Um, like, yeah, you can do that. You have every right to ask that of me. I have every right to not want to engage with you. And there's people that I have engaged with, and there's people that I haven't engaged with because if this is something that's really important to you, there's a level where I could not be bothered to give a shit. And like, this is where the closest time I've ever agreed with Gibbs on this panel is like there's just levels where like I got bills to pay and mouths to feed. If this is something you care about, like I have like far more important shit to worry about than what you want. But let me get into just the questions of the prompt. Is this law constitutional within Florida? Honestly, I have no idea. Like I actually am with Corey on this one. I'd have to ask Lactoid what he thinks and like pick his brain a little bit. Is this basically anti-rainbow for the Rainbow Coalition? I find the movement completely incoherent at this point. Like I don't know what it's actually trying to aim at because it's trying to go in about 7 different directions all at the same time, which many are incompatible. Straight up, I don't think it's grounded anymore in any kind of like thought. And then when it comes to like gender and sexuality discussions within school, look, I had sex ed in 5th grade. I think there's obviously a time and a place. I think unfortunately because of these issues, we have ratcheted up to where unfortunately a lot of people on my side are simply going like, no, we can't talk about sex in school anymore. Everyone's going on abstinence only. It's fucking mental. But yeah, just the pronouns thing, which I missed this one. As much as I hate the whole pronouns thing, firing someone for using a pronoun is peak snowflake behavior unto itself. I do want to get that down. Just like ignore these people if you think they're a pain in the ass. Treat it like it is. It's a child-like symptom. Like just they're acting like children. Treat them like children. I'm gonna kill it off from there and let Doobie go.
Doobie, please.
I'm actually torn on this one, to be honest. So like I think my impulse is to say, fuck you and your like weird gender pronoun shit or honorific, whatever the fuck they want to call it. Keep that shit out of the school, right? I don't think that school is a place for you to be an activist, right? Like that's my impulse. But if this is like a genuine like actually, fuck it. I don't even care if it's a genuine thing. I say fuck their activist shit. It's clearly another attempt. This is attempt number 10,000 for some person to politicize the classroom, right? And I think this kind of shit should be shut down entirely. I think I'm glad they got fired. If any teachers supporting them also get fired, I think all this shit should be shut down.
Thank you for that, Doobie. Because Doobie is what I was talking about before. And I I said at the very start that this would have a chilling effect. That you guys could read the letter of this law and of like the original, don't say like beyond the expansion, but like the original bill, and say, well, it doesn't ban this or that, right? And so why would this be a problem? I told you guys specifically that this is going to scare individuals from being able to do little anything to make teachers terrified that they might say something vaguely adjacent to sexuality and then be prosecuted for them. We can see we've seen for since this has been passed that schools rather than take the risk, go the conservative route, saying that we don't want to go that far, right? We want to like if this seems vaguely LGBT related, well, we're gonna put a stop to that. And so you have teachers who are just terrified. And now we come to this specific example where putting MX is somehow aggrieving the children. The children like literally don't care. They learned a new thing that MX exists, right? They'll be better prepared for that than I was. Of course, it'd be fine. But the school acting in a conservative manner, right, says that like we are gonna take action against this individual because I guess this is somehow instruction. I don't know, maybe. I guess instruction.
No, that's not true.
Go ahead.
No, the law
sure.
specifically states. I put it in the Discord group before the debate. Like, hey, this like page 488. This is the section, right? And I think it's like section 3. Like, it specifically states that like you have to use a pronoun that
Right.
is tied to your gender, right? So
Yeah,
it's
and
not
to
about
clear, this is the
education.
expanded version. Prime, this is the expanded version of the law that we spoke about, right? So this was added in, and I don't think
Yeah,
I've
this was added
seen.
in May of this year.
Yeah, I don't think I mean, I'm not aware of any cases where like where what you said would happen back then has happened, right? I'm sure teachers still talk about, oh, they say, "Oh, my husband," without worrying about getting fired. This is specifically like the reason this person got fired, and it says in the article, they knew that there could be legal problems because it was contradicting the law that had been passed. They got fired for
Did it for months.
intentionally, flagrantly violating what the law was. And if there's an issue with the law, well, then hey, we have a democracy to get the law changed.
Yeah, they did it for months intentionally and were asked nicely like several times. And then they were like, well, I want to have a conversation about it. I don't want to just be told no. And they were like, okay. And they brought him in. And then they were like, hey, you have to change this. This is against the law, right? You can and then we like, maybe I don't know, like, and they floated the idea of like, change it to the professor or whatever. And they were like, cool, but get rid of fucking MX right now. And then they were like, I'm not going to do this. And like I said, they said, that I'm privileged enough to not need to live paycheck to paycheck right now. What good is privilege if you can't use it to help other? Like, it's lawfare. Like, they want to be sued. They have the money to go through with the lawsuit. This isn't like they were like bullied or something, or that this is like kind of like happened one day out of nowhere. Like, they told them months ago, hey, the new law says you can't do this. Please fix this. And then they didn't.
So to be clear, I had read the part about the pronouns. I guess this counts under titles. I was thinking of it as honorifics, but fair enough for the expanded version. But in any case, I think it still it doesn't make any fucking sense, right? Like it privileges like straight heterosexual interactions. It says these things are normal and these things can be talked about and these things aren't shamed. But it says that anything that even whiffs of LGBT interaction is somehow shameful and needs to be kept away from the children. Having MX, I get I get that the law prohibits it, right? I get that. I'm saying the law is should be unconstitutional and doesn't and is unjust. So I'll start there. But Gibbs, you want to jump in?
Yeah, let me just ask you a question, Prime. So like I like originally like I kind of was gonna come softer, I think, until I heard exactly what it was, and then it reminds me of the Chuck Wendig Star Wars experience that it really came to mind. So my question to you, and I can explain that if you'd like to, but it is I know you have a problem with the specific of the law aspect of that, right? And that you think it might be unconstitutional or it is, but you have a problem with the legal act. Do you have a problem if with like per se the free market coming in and deciding they have an issue with this, and then the company taking drastic steps and like getting rid of the person, like with Chuck Wendig, like yeah, basically just for the Chuck Wendig situation, he made a character in Star Wars. He's hands down the worst writer in all of Star Wars fandom history. I just want to go on record saying that. He uses like pew 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 a lot, and anyway, terrible writer. But he made one of the characters. Like in there, like for the sake of just being woke, like a LGBTQ alien insect or something, and gave
Mhm.
them the neo pronouns ze they or ze them or something like that. And the backlash was so heavy. Disney, even like which is I think is fairly woke, decided they were done with it and fired it. Now, do you have a problem with like the free market deciding something like that, or do you only want to restrict it to like say like the law is your issue? I just out of curiosity. I just want
Sorry, I'm a bit confused. So help me clear this up.
so
Are you saying?
basically the backlash.
If this was a private school teacher,
Yeah, if this was a private school teacher or like there was no law and there was public backlash and they got canned for it, would you have a problem with it with that? As a like they like basically what happened with Chuck Wendig in that example. He made a woke like neo pronoun character, major backlash in addition to his terrible writing skills, but major backlash. And I mean, he's a really bad writer. I just want to go on record and say that. But the reason he got fired wasn't his bad writing. It was
you're on record.
because of the pronouns. I hope he sees this, by the way, so I can let him know how bad of a writer he is. So make sure y'all tag him on Twitter later.
Who's a
Yeah,
bad writer
Right,
again?
right.
Chuck
Yeah,
Wendig.
I
Admiral
Jump in
Gibbs,
here.
he said that Drew Karpyshyn was a terrible writer. I don't know why he would say that, but
But yeah, so like, but the backlash was not the writing. It was some of it was, but the main backlash was the Theo pronoun thing,
okay.
and so they fired him for it. You have a problem with something
So,
like that, as opposed to like, yeah, if there's a private teacher, I guess, sure.
okay. So I think of. Hmm, uh, I'm not sure I'm completely understanding the situation
So
with.
if there was no law and it was and he was a
Yeah,
private teacher,
no law.
and they
Private
did
teacher.
this, and they decided, hey, you're done, ski, because there's public backlash against Mixter, as I well think there should be. But as they say, public backlash, and the school canned him. Would you have an issue then? Is your main issue that it's canonized as a law?
So I guess I'm trying to think of this, and please give me grace to like change my answer on this because I
Sure.
haven't thought about it in this way previously. But for now, what I'll say is I have been fine in the past with companies firing individuals because of doing something like socially irresponsible or horrible. So I'll say yeah, I guess
Yeah,
that's
this wasn't a
fine.
trap. I was just curious.
Yeah, sure. I just don't have my thoughts all together on this one yet. But so I'll say yeah, that's fine. Putting this into a legislation though, it it makes a situation
I'm
where
guys
sorry.
openly supporting repealing the Civil Rights Act and discriminating on people based upon their gender identity. Super base prime. I appreciate you coming over to the libertarian position. Private companies should have the
Gibbs
authority
telling me it's not a
to.
trap. Gibbs here.
It wasn't
Like,
a trap for me. It wasn't a trap for me, bro. It wasn't a trap
I'm
for me.
so glad that you've admitted that we can discriminate and fire people based upon their pronoun usage because we don't want that woke dumb shit. Or in your, it's like,
All right,
I can't
I
wait
lied,
to
I
fire all
guess.
the gays.
This was misinformation I gave you, I guess. I mean, I didn't
Yeah,
intend to walk you
if
into a
only we
trap.
could have censored him beforehand. If the government
Pre-bunking.
Someone
pre-bunked
contact
him.
Aspen. Hurry up and come get it.
Exactly. Yeah. So anyway, I just think this when it's legislation, it creates a situation where like heterosexual life is uh elevated, I guess. I'm not sure if I'm using the right word. Maybe that's not the right word, but elevated and for this stigmatizes homosexuality or queerness in all its forms. I'm sure other people wanted to ask me stuff, or someone else stuff. No, no one want to say anything.
Okay, I'll go. I was really trying to be patient, not hog all the time, but I'll fucking go.
Oh no, let's try this. Ty, do you have anything? Like you're just sitting there. You said like, oh, this is gonna be so crazy, but the moment it starts, you don't say anything. So Ty,
Wait, I don't know where I said it was crazy. I just
You
thought it
said
was
this is
the
gonna
war
be
and
crazy.
stupid. Oh, okay. Well, I don't remember me saying that, but sure. Like, I mean, this topic's always fucking off the walls, right? Because you got Scott coming in from the rafters, like acting like he's CTV in this particular topic, and then like
What?
yeah, I'll put it this way. I don't know where the nuance even in this conversation is. And like, I mean, I can get into, hey, what is the actual purpose of the Rainbow Coalition? Like, I can just ask that, and we could spend probably the rest of the topic just trying to dissect it.
Yeah, I can answer that question.
Go for
Yeah,
it.
the Rainbow Coalition is just the natural process of queer theory, which is instantiated within critical theory. That includes all of the schools of critical theory. It is the Hegelian dialectic moved into Marxist materialist dialectics, and then after Marxism fails, you have George Lukács setting up sex education programs, based upon the principles of Antonio Gramsci's countercultural hegemonic systems that are necessary within Hungary. And although the Hungary Marxian experiment fails, it inspires the oh my God, why can I not? The Frankfurt School in their development of critical theory. Weber, his famous pieces, and yes, you do have, as you described, kind of like multiple different variations of leftism, but that kind of like move along the same train but have different goals or different beliefs as they move along, right? The Marcusians that are more state-like, the Marxians that are more utopic and revolutionary, etc. And that is true, but that's kind of the problem with that's why you have to go all the way to Hegel. That is the problem with instantiating contradictions as just things that always exist that need to be synthesized into a new whole. And so you have that form, and queer theory comes from and is birthed from intersectional theory and critical race theory, critical legal studies, the basic critical theory, etc. And so when you ask like what are the goals of the Rainbow Coalition, it's not that the Rainbow Coalition has goals so much as the ideology is a runaway train, and that runaway train is what's lunacy. That is what is off the tracks.
Let me pull you down.
Is
Let me pull you down a level,
Okay,
because there's levels where obviously as a right winger I have serious issues with the ideology, but I want to pull this back down to just the Rainbow Coalition itself, right? We have the old part of the coalition, which was largely gays, lesbians, and bisexuals who said, hey, look, I have a sexuality. I do not actually control it. Like, there's some levels to where, like, maybe it's influenced by certain things. Some people don't understand it. Some people understand it more than others. Like, I'm not going to get that, right?
The political system of born this way. Yeah.
Right. So, like, that was largely their argument. They fought for 40 fucking years to get, like, what they wanted. And, obviously we had Overfell, which kind of, like, put that over the finish line. But there were still a few things that they had, like, on the docket list. But largely the critical part of the movement had been achieved. But then, queer folks, transgender, and all the other shit has now been added to the coalition. And I'll just put it this way. Like, the left can totally come in here and argue in between me and Scott on this one. But where the original part, the LGB part, is a sexuality conversation, transgenderism and queer is more of a transhumanist kind of conversation.
So here's the problem: is that you're separating. You're not appropriately separating just how disparate the groups are at all times, right?
Mm-hmm.
You realize that there's all these different groups, and then you kind of like look at major movements and the successes and the policy successes they had as a group. And see, the thing is that you have to understand is that the transgender were at fucking Stonewall, right? Like the Marxists have been a part of feminist and LGBT movements since the very beginning, but and liberals were a major part of it as well. And the same is true with the Civil Rights Act, right? You have liberals like Martin Luther King, and then you have Marxists as part of the same group, and it's a coalition that used liberalism, which is an idea that is uniquely strong in America, to gain individual liberties and rights. Except the problem is that the Marxists, the leftists, right, the psychos, if you will, that train never stops until revolution occurs. The only way that train stops, right, it's not about getting equal rights. That's just a thing they can latch on to because there's an oppressed group that's legitimately oppressed.
Yeah,
and so they can use the oppressed oppressor dynamics very well to gain and grow movements, gain money, gain support, gain connections, and eventually infect and parasitize those very things so that they gain institutional power that is designed for a revolution to overthrow Western society. That's the end goal: overthrowing of Western society.
Look, I get that. I'm not like going into that. I'm more just looking at this group as a whole, and I know you're like trying to say, hey, look, you need to expand out upon that. That's fine. Like I get that. Like there's a reason I don't like leftism. There's multiple reasons why I don't like leftism.
Mhm.
Like I'm trying to actually like understand, and I don't think anyone here is actually part of this team, right? Like does anyone here actually identify as part of the Rainbow Coalition? Because like I would want to ask you or anyone, hell, if anyone's
like
in chat,
rainbows.
right? It's just straight up. Like how do you
Been
compare?
called a chaser a few times, which is the exact opposite.
Yeah. Anyway, like how do you make these two conversations coherent to where it's part of the same movement? Or if you don't, then like what is the point of the movement besides that?
Sorry,
Like,
what
I
is
mean,
it? Oh, you go first, Gibbs.
Yeah, I was just gonna say. I mean, I also think that like you kind of hit the nail on the head with it's not a monolith, right? There's a lot of different groups, and like I mean, I don't know what y'all are specifically. I mean, maybe I'm just ignorant. When y'all say the Rainbow Coalition, are y'all just talking about the LGBTQ movement in general, or is there a specific org that I'm not aware of called the Rainbow Coalition? Before I go on with this, no,
it's LGBT plus. Like
all
the
right.
problem is
Okay,
like
so
I
it's the
mean
movement in general. All right, all right.
yeah.
Sorry. I just want to make sure before I say the next thing.
There is an actual organization called the Rainbow Coalition, but it has nothing to do with the fuck they're talking about.
Oh,
Yeah.
I
Okay,
apologize.
so
I actually didn't know that.
I want to say
Yeah,
that
there is.
I want to say that. Well, I guess is that who you were talking about? Because I was taking it as the okay. So
No, I'm
I
talking
knew
about the
Tavares.
movement.
I
I knew what time meant.
so what I'm saying like is it's not a monolith, and I just like was googling the story to begin with, and I actually saw this story posted by two other groups who are I would consider would I guess fall under. I don't know if they would fall under the. I mean, this could be also a part of this debate, y'all, if y'all want to have it. But there, it was the Gays Against Groomers and the and Gay Republicans both posted about this story recently, saying that they found this as a win against basically lunacy, right? So I would almost consider these are pro um,
No,
LGBTQ movement people. These are
no,
people that
no,
are because
no,
they are gay, right? They are. And so would they not be part of the movement? Like, I mean, it's
no,
not a
no.
monolith. People have different beliefs within the LGBTQ community. Like, I mean, so
Sure, but you're talking about people that are actively enemies of woke culture and critical theory, right? Like so, like I understand that yes, they are activist organizations and they are primarily founded by gays and lesbians, right? Gays Against Groomers is founded by a lesbian, with a couple other people that are gay. Um, so sure, right? And there are even a lot of detrans people that you could consider part of the movement, but maybe not part of the movement because they no longer identify as being in that category. But they are detrans people that have experiences within that, right? Especially when you talk about like Gen Spec, with people like, Sinead O'Connor and, Richie and things like that. And there's a whole argument going on right now with, Phil Illy, who's I spoke with him. I thought he was a great guest, but he wore a dress to Gen Spec. And he's a big proponent and wrote a great book that you should check out on AGP. But they're mad at him for wearing a dress and admitting that that's part of his sexual orientation is being and presenting as a female and then being around women. So basically all the TERFs got pissed, right? So like even someone that is on their side that is anti-woke, that is pushing, AGP is a thing, is now being ejected for not being anti-woke enough or for being a sicko, et cetera, et cetera. So like, no, these people are very clearly identifying themselves and allying against the Rainbow Coalition, if whatever term you want to use for queer theory in action.
Okay.
okay, yeah.
Sure. So,
I mean, this
Ty.
is my bread and butter. I can go on all day. Like,
Yeah.
I know this shit like the back of my hand.
Sure.
sure you do.
And I would love to get into Ty. You were saying two parts of this coalition. How do you make these things synchronize or something?
Yeah, I'll just repeat the original statement that I had. Like, you have the original LGB, which was largely, hey, like, we are having a conversation about our sexuality. We can't control it. Like, we should be accepted, that kind of stuff, right? Like, we're here, we're queer, we're not going anywhere. Like, I mean, this is what I grew up with. Like, this is, yeah, right? But since then, basically since Oberfell, at least in my experience, and granted, there's some history here that I'm still, like, processing up, but you had the queer folks, the transgender, all this that's been bolted on, right? Now, my problem with this is that it is, to me, a separate argument. You're talking about what is largely a transhumanist argument to where I can change my gender. Like, my gender is something that uh, long story short, I believe that through numerous circumstances that I am not the gender that I was born into, which is innately a completely different argument than like the sexuality argument. Like I could see maybe some coalition where it's like I believe I'm born this way kind of thing where they can like group around, but outside of that,
Okay.
yeah.
So
They're antithetical.
you already stated they're not. But you already stated at the start that there's some history here that you're unaware of. That's fair, right? So to be clear, the trans movement has always been tied to the LGB, as you referred to it. Like from the very beginning, like there were trans people, for instance, at the Stonewall riots, right? Like it was a lot.
Well, they were around the corner.
They were
a lot of organizations lie about them being like the ones throwing the rocks.
They were
immediately.
literally.
But they were there like very shortly. Yeah,
they were okay. So
they were there that day. Yes.
So there was.
There is misinformation about the trans people. I was just throwing that out.
Okay, well we'll have to deal with that later. But like they've been tied to this the entire time. They've been part of this movement for decades. It's just that we've been ignoring them as a society in general and just generally degrading them and saying that they're a danger. That's kind of just the general idea of them previously. It's not like they weren't asking for these same things the entire time. They were. But only now has there been a breakthrough that society has noticed them, and it's actually turned out worse now that we remember that they're around. But they have been there.
To be fair,
and to be clear, sorry,
minuscule. They were incredibly small group of people that like you could count in 3 digits in a state back then.
That's another thing to deal with. But fuck. I was just gonna say something. Fuck. Sorry, I just lost it. Thank you, Scott, for that. But I will back to it. Fuck, I was gonna say something. Back to it.
So I was going to talk about the law here. So it might be a little bit of a shift from the Rainbow Coalition, kind of broader philosophical conversation. Is that okay?
It's perfectly fine.
How dare you?
I know.
I want to talk about Paulo Freire. All right.
I know. All that good stuff. I've been doing a little bit of refreshing, right? Because obviously I know all this stuff anyway, but I had to refresh myself. I'm going to make a prediction. I think this law is going to get struck down. The more I read into it, I do, and based on a number of reasons. The wording of the law is kind of flies in the face of a string of recent Supreme Court decisions with this court. Bostock versus Clayton County is one. That's one of the more famous ones where the Supreme Court, Neil Gorsuch, actually ruled that no, actually preventing a man from doing something that a woman could do and not get fired is sex discrimination under Title VII of the Civil Rights Act, right? And so if you stop a man from using a woman's bathroom, when you let women use women's bathroom, obviously you are discriminating based on sex, because if the man was a woman, they could use that bathroom, and and vice versa. A very similar thing happened with someone who was dressing in dresses and makeup and things characteristic of the other gender, and Neil Gorsuch ruled the same thing, and this was 6-3. So I think it's pretty, I think those are very analogous to this, right? Because the argument's going to be maybe not to this specific situation, right? But to this law, right? The argument's going to be, well, if a man wants to identify, I know I'm using man wrong here, but just for the argument's sake, if a man wants to identify using Mrs., if it was a biological female, you would have no problem with this, right? But because it's a biological male, you are firing this person, which means that it's sex discrimination under Title VII. I absolutely see the Supreme Court striking down this law on that basis.
There's one substantive difference you're missing, which I don't think will make that big of a difference. I agree with you that it probably will get struck down, just to be clear. But this law only applies to public education and charter schools. It doesn't apply to the market.
No. This is Title VII. I know, but this is Title VII of the Civil Rights Act. That applies to public employers.
For sure, I'm just saying, like, you might be able to make a different argument in terms of what is considered to be political speech via the pronouns, and that changes it because those laws are different. That those protections are different for people that are public employees. Though again, the charter school just getting tax money might swing in your favor. But I'm just saying there is a chance that it's upheld. But I agree with you that you're almost certainly right.
Well, yeah. So I mean, here's the problem. So
if it's considered speech, it changes.
Yeah. Well, in Bostock versus Clayton County, that's the bathroom case. It was a county job, right? It was a public job this guy had that he wasn't allowed to use the bathroom, or she. I don't actually know the specifics.
Yeah, but it's not speech.
This person, right? So it could, you could stretch it so it could be, I suppose. I just don't see that argument flying when it comes to somebody's own personal pronouns, because
I agree. I just want to throw it out there.
Sure, that's fair, because I think that there is something different about this case that's going to make it very difficult, which is this is going to be the first time, if it was a transgender person, that'd be one thing, but this involves a self-proclaimed non-binary person, which is mix, right? Which is now the argument is going to be from the opposing side. Well, before you said Title VII prohibits sexual discrimination based on sex, but we're not saying, or sorry, they are saying this, but in this specific case, it's not somebody saying they want to use the other sex's pronoun and they're getting fired for it. They're using a pronoun that the school district is saying nobody can use, right? Nobody can use regardless of what sex or race or whatever they are.
Right.
That's what I think is going to be the sort of wrench in this decision, which is this is going to be it's going to be a decision where the Supreme Court has to figure out, like, does Title VII apply to non-binary, which, considering they use sex, there's a strong argument that it doesn't. Regardless, the law will not apply, in my opinion, will not apply if it was just like a straight transgender person who's like, I want to use pronouns of like Mr., and let's say they were born biologically female. If they say, I want to use Mr., and then they get fired for that, I think that'd be an easy win with the current Supreme Court.
I think what's also going to happen is it's going to be the majority opinion will likely also correct that for the trans, saying that, like, you are because and utilize that almost like kind of, because the Supreme Court does that all the fucking time, where they're pulling in like, well, what if, right? Because they have a little bit more leeway to do that, and almost
when they want to, because when they don't want to deal with that, oh, that's a decision for a different time. We're not
of course,
to deal with that decision, right? But in this specific instance, I could absolutely see them. Yeah, I could see them doing two things. I could see them just simply saying, like, this doesn't apply to this isn't Title VII because it doesn't apply to, like, sex discrimination, because it's not.
To be honest, I would say what's even more likely is that Florida might get rid of it, and then an appellate court might not take it. It might say that there's no grounds to I mean, they might not, like, I think it's a big assumption maybe that it goes all the way to the Supreme Court.
Right, because I'm going to read right here, right? So 3, page 5, 106. An employee or contractor of a public K-12 educational institution may not provide to a student his or her preferred personal title or pronouns if such preferred personal title or pronouns do not correspond to his or her sex. That is just a losing clause right there.
Right.
So I also think, based off my so far what I've learned about the legal system, that it's probably going to fail. But I mean, yeah, I have some law background, not as much as Lactoid here, but here's my issue is that, and this is why I'm not a libertarian right here. This is the kind of laws that need to be passed sometimes that have to stop lunacy. It's lunacy. Like we've gotten to the point where like I could go to the school. What if I had said instead of I'd done a mixture and like this is gonna be a meme almost, but say I decided that I wanted my pronouns to be Oscar Mayer Wiener. Like I feel like we are literally in this like in what was that movie with Demolition Man? Like that's what this feels like. Like it sounds stupid, but we're on that road. Like sometimes like I hate to be the guy because y'all know how much I hate big government, but like I hate to be, sometimes the government does need to like step in and do something. Now do I think this was right, the right way to do it? No, it's probably not going to stand. Right? There needs to be something, but like somebody's got to protect the children. Like and the point where we get to the
Won't
point where
somebody please think of the children?
somebody's got to do something. Like I mean, even as the children, me on a day-to-day basis, it is a headache. If I have to walk up to somebody and they want me to take them seriously when they're sitting here telling me their pronouns are ze, they, them, or mixed, I'll call them that because I'm not just gonna be a rabid dick. But like, as soon as I get in my car, I'm gonna be like, bro, I'm gonna be like, bro, I need to smoke a bowl. I'm gonna need to take a shot. I know this is illegal. Like, dear Lord, I'm stressed. Like, you are literally stressing me out and causing my mental health to be bad just by like expecting me to be saying this outrageous shit. Like, that's what it is. I'm sorry. I'm done.
Okay. All right. So, our friend Gibbs is having a moment. He's being overwhelmed.
It's wrong.
There are
The
so
children,
many
man.
pronouns.
He's deeply hurt by the
Just waiting for
pronouns.
I'm waiting for Corey.
he
That's all
can't-
I'm
It's just
waiting
too
for.
much. It's just too much. Like,
Gibbs doesn't really.
It's too
Okay,
much.
does,
It's too much, right?
it is too much.
His neural
when somebody
pathways
says
have been
mix,
overloaded.
when somebody says I'm totally on board. Like the showing the kids pornography in school was a step too far. Okay, you really get like this worked up if someone says
It's
like my
bro,
pronouns are mix. It's like
it's
okay, it's weird, but I mean, is it?
it's okay. So like once again, I'm gonna call them whatever they want, like because I'm just it's fine. But here's my deal, like especially with like like teaching. I saw this as a virtual school, so I'm a little confused exactly who's it's teaching. But like if it's teaching like say you're in a high school. And you have to go in there and like this is some place where you're supposed to be teaching and showing these teachers respect. And you're supposed to go in there and you're showing them and like teaching them formal stuff for the real world. I hate to break it to you. I've been in the real world a long time. I feel like now at this point, and I've been a very successful businessman. I touch grass. Like I go outside, as the kids say,
And
like
rattlesnakes.
and rattlesnakes, bro. You gotta watch out for them. And the rattlesnakes aren't asking me to say call them mixed. No, I'm just kidding.
You're
But
shooting them. They're not going to say anything.
exactly because we don't respect anyway. So the point is though, that before we go meme off too hard, like in a professional setting, you do lose some. Like I'm sorry, I'm not gonna sell. Like I mean, I'll sell to anybody, but like if I'm trying to sell something and I walk in and I go to like a store and I start hitting them with, oh yeah, but by the way, before you buy my stuff, my pronouns are golden god. Like they're gonna just they're gonna laugh me out of the place. Like if I same thing with Mister. Oh, I'm Mr. Gibbs. Oh, okay, nice to meet you, Mr. Gibbs. No. It's Mixter. What do you mean, Mr. Mixter? MX. If you call me anything, I'm offended. How dare you? Like, no, it's ridiculous. I'm sorry. I'm not jumping on board. Like,
So
it's
I
ridiculous.
think you're.
So I do
I
want to
think-
get to Corey. Corey.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I just want to clarify, just so I understand what Lactoid said earlier. Of like, it seems like, well, yeah, based off your interpretation, it's going to get struck down. Where it's like, it seems it's sort of like my example. It's like, if I use the title of the Corey Campbell, that's like gender neutral, right? It's not sex based.
Right. That's going to be the counter argument because so far all the cases have been like it's somebody doing something that if they had been biologically a woman, they would have not gotten in trouble if they were doing that thing, right? And
To be fair,
so
pause real quick. We only have one half of the story. The other party hasn't commented, so we only have the obvious activists that went to the news to say I have the privilege and the ability to fight this. So they could be bullshitting about some of the details. Just to be fair, before we make any more,
Yeah, sure. But I'm just giving it my
they
hypothetical.
could be, but the law speaks for itself, right?
Yeah, for sure. I'm just saying, like, the case might not go
That's true.
anywhere, and they might need a different case because it could all be bullshit.
Yeah,
That's
but
true.
that essentially is that like assuming everything you said is true and factual. That is like the scenario. Like it's pretty much it's not based in sex. And like yeah, Gibbs, like I'm not against protecting children, but you think protecting children from two letters is like that's like a step too far?
Well, I mean, like at
Or
some point,
that's you have to do
yeah,
that.
yeah. I mean, like because what is teaching? Like, what do you teach? Like, what is the point of a
Well,
school?
so first of all, wait, also, like, this is not part of the curriculum as far as I tell. Like, and like
Sure,
also
sure.
like based off of what Fabian said, it's like, yeah, it's in their email signature, it's virtual, and it's like whatever, it's in their text messaging. Like I'm sure the probably maybe the students are bombarded with this in all the interactions, but I don't think they're teaching it as far as I know. Like I would maybe take issue if they're actually teaching it and giving a lecture on whatever mix or
I mean,
mixer.
like I said,
But that's not the
like,
case.
yeah, like I said, like I mean, I kind of agreed with like earlier with my opening with Fabian. I really didn't touch on this. Was like I like to think it's this is a lot of the lawfare context, right? Right. But as far as yeah, I think it doesn't come back to teaching because we're sitting here. It's a lot of the things you do in teaching. There's reasons why we, like I know you're not the biggest sports guy, right? But there's reason why people
Well,
have
not
sports.
not perfect. Like I'm very active and I engage in sports. I just think watching
Right,
sports is
well,
stupid.
yeah, and I know you've had some takes previously, you're not the biggest, like, on the sports in schools and whatever, but so, one of the reasons I like sports schools is it teaches, like, teamwork, these are things it builds,
Or
right?
just
But
concussions.
listen, a few concussions are good for the soul, right? Builds
People
character.
can work together to overcome their
It's-
concussions,
It's
right?
like
So,
it's like
I
he's not
bet
anti-sports. He's just anti-kids getting fucking brain damage.
well,
You know
we
what
can
I
argue
mean?
let's
Yeah,
let's
and
not go argue
They can help each other find the words to finish each other's sentences, right?
we'll
I mean,
just
that's
go
like
it goes yeah, let's just say I say it thinks it builds character, whatever. If you concussion, whatever. That's not where I'm going. So the point is like same thing with the pronoun here in this sense, right? You're teaching people at school the sense is you're gonna make these people viable in the real world, right? You want to make them productive members of society. And what we're doing by allowing this kind of thing is like I said, I think it's lunacy. We're allowing them to come in here and teach them bad habits. Like if I have if I'm trying to hire people, I'm always trying to hire people that can like sell to anybody, right? So what's going to be good for me? Okay, I see a demographic I'm not selling to is is a younger demographic. It's this group of like kids that just turned 18 to like 25 or whatever, right? And so I have some candidates, and one of them comes up to me and introduces me as their pronouns, whatever. Now I live in Texas. As long as I don't tell them why I'm firing them or not hiring them, I'm not going to get in trouble, right? Like, so like
Thanks.
but if they're going to sit here and tell me their pronouns are these, they, them, Mixter, or like Bob Saget, and then like I don't, it doesn't matter if it's something
Okay,
ridiculous.
wait, like, can I just stop you right
I'm
there?
not
Like,
going to hire
I'm
them
gonna
because
stop you right there.
lots of
I'm
people are
going
going
to
to think
stop
like
you
that.
right there. I'm going to stop you right there. I don't know for sure, but I'm willing to bet in your hypothetical world, if that person has all those pronouns in the they probably don't want to work for you based off
They
of.
should because they'll make a bunch of money and then they go spend it on whatever activist cause they want. That's fine with me. I mean, but my point is this: like, if I'm thinking this, there's 10 more thinking this, and I feel like when it comes to those kind of things, like I know I'm conservative and like with my like whatnot, like, but when it comes to my money, like, guess what? I'll hire anybody, and if I'm going, whoa, bro, like this is too
But you
much.
won't hire anybody.
Yeah, I
You won't.
won't because it's lunacy. It's lunacy. Like,
No.
and then also it
Oh,
speaks to I don't know an indicative of a bigger. I don't know. We'll not
Yeah,
go there. I'll
I
leave it
want
at
to get off of this because I like we have a limited amount of time and I do want to like focus on the heart of this uh issue. So
well, I think.
what.
Well, no, I just think that I mean, like maybe it's a bit repetitive, but I think that this is the heart of the issue, right? Because I think there's one, I think there's obviously the section of like the law itself, the constitutionality of the lawfare, and I there are many things to be said about that, but the other question here is like why was this law made? Was it just haphazardly thrown together that like we don't want people putting their fucking pronouns out? No, it's because the state, like always, doesn't know how to react, especially to philosophy and to an ideology that has infected education almost completely. And they don't know what to do. So they're heavy handed in their approach because the state is in charge of education, which they shouldn't be, right? We should abolish public schools and allow the market to be able to handle this so that we could actually fix this problem. But there is a reason that this is used and that the pronoun thing is indicative of a problem. It is a problematic, maybe not always, but it is a red flag if someone has fucking pronouns in their bio that they will be teaching very bad things to children and forcing an ideology that is destructive towards America, towards the citizens, towards its people, towards its economy, towards Western society itself. And
Okay.
it's a pretty good guess
Sure.
that
Yeah.
if you get rid of those people,
Yeah.
you'll have less problems.
Okay. Yeah. Sure. So I agree. It's indicative of of a bigoted society, right, and of bigots who support it. It's indicative of like when you have an individual who's just like sharing their a little bit about their personal life with their students, just like all others, right? But that once it's a same-sex individual, or sorry, that seems like an individual. Excuse me, a same-sex relationship. All of a sudden, there's some harm being done. There's an ideology, however you like to define that. It morphs as these conversations go along. That's being pushed upon the child, and so something needs to be done. It's interesting that it must be some coincidence that for the book banning that's happened within Florida from the free speech fighters, right? The free speech warriors, that they specifically seem to be banning
child pornography. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, exactly. They say child pornography when they mean when they're talking about a book that says, "Hey, man, it's okay to be a little bit different."
Would you like me
They say
to pull up
child.
images
They
for
sell.
that
They
on your
sell.
stream?
They sell. They sell. They
Can I
they
pull up
say.
images
They
on your
say.
stream
They
of the
say.
banned
They say
books?
child
Can I?
pornography. They say child
Can I pull up
pornography.
images
Excuse me.
from
Hold on,
those
dude.
books
I
on your
you
stream? Can
do recognize that
I
I'm
have permission
talking,
to do
right?
that?
Do you recognize I'm talking? Great. I'm
Can
glad
I have
we've
permission to
accomplished
put
that.
those images on the
Okay,
screen?
if you don't recognize that I'm talking, I
Because you
can
will be
assist
banned.
you. You don't seem all right. No problem. No problem. You don't seem to understand.
What
All
was
right,
that?
I'll help you out. So like like when it's they banned these books when we're talking about gay individuals, when we're talking about trans individuals, when we're talking about black individuals. Those are the books that get banned. So let's not bullshit around about that. I want to go to Doobie. Doobie, I had brought this up with you a few times previously, and you thought it was appropriate that this even the original iteration of this law, K through 3, can't be talking about you can't be talking about LGBTQ ideology with the kids because it's going to infect them. You were okay with that reasoning. Are you still okay with the amount of confusion that's happened afterwards and the chilling effect it's had on teachers?
Yeah, I don't think it's had that much. I don't think there is that much confusion. I don't think that there is a chilling effect. If there is confusion, it's teachers or school boards misinterpreting the law or having like some kind of an issue with like how to implement the law. But that's something that can be worked through, cleared up. It seems like there's like limited examples that I've been able to find of anybody even getting in trouble for this, right? So it seems like the hype at the start of this, where they're going to ban gay teachers, they're going to ban talking about gayness in the classroom entirely, and they're going to ban it in high school and all this kind of shit. And if you say that you have a husband, you're going to get fired. Like all that was nonsense. It seems.
Yeah, except I have examples. For instance, in Orange County, Florida, K through K through 3 teachers could not display pride flags or photos of same-sex partners. But at the time, so the staff was told this, but then later on, the teachers union said that like maybe it was fine. No one knew. In another district, they were as far as they were told, there was no issue at all. There is the situation with counselors, counselors having to notify parents of their students' sexual identity if they happen to be gay. Then there's a counselor, and I'm going to see if I can pull up the district here.
Wait, so why are you pulling it up? So I just went to the first one, right, and said that that's not true, right? So that teachers are allowed or have been allowed to have photos of their gay partners.
Yeah, I would have a problem with it for sure if it was that. Like, I want to just say, like, as long like if they have a photo of them and their partner,
And I put it in the group chat.
that's not an issue. I don't think. Like, right? Like, so, like, I just want to preface that, right? That's not a problem. Like, I actually have way more of a problem with the mixer thing than I do with oh, we have a
Um,
gay teacher. Like, that should not be the issue. Like, but if we're over here
yeah,
preaching that,
but just really quickly, because I think Prime, I think that a lot of the chilling effect, I think, came from the paranoia that was being pushed around about the bill prior to its being passed. Right, the fact that we're calling it the "Don't Say Gay" bill, right? That is like political propaganda that was pushed around, spread all over school, spread all over Twitter, on the news, right? So you had a lot of people who weren't sure exactly what the fuck this law was going to do, right? And were afraid to get in trouble for crossing the line. They didn't really know what the line was. So yeah, there's confusion, but it seems like the confusion is the result of that propaganda.
So, 1 second. The oh fuck, I clicked on the wrong article here. So they don't list the district here, unfortunately. I'm sorry. But it talks about how a guidance counselor is told in one of these Florida districts that she has to report the full contents of her interaction with students, right? Parents need to be notified immediately if a student wants to go to a guidance counselor, and then they have to report the contents of that of those interactions. When previously they just had to report like if the child's like hurting themselves, like if they're cutting themselves, then they would report to the parents.
I don't even see an issue with that.
Yeah, what's the problem? This is not like a psychiatrist. It's a
What
school
if, what
guidance.
if hold on, what if the parents are the problem, right? What if like as a child, like I'm looking for help, I go to my guidance counselor saying I'm having these troubles at home, right? It doesn't have to be a level of abuse, it doesn't have to even go that far, right? But I'm having
Right.
trouble at home, and the first thing they do is like, okay, like everything you tell me I'm going to be transcribing to your for your parents, right? So like is that a safe place for me to go to get help,
Yeah,
to
I
get
think so.
guidance? Okay,
Yeah,
so
hold on. So hold on. So like if whatever's going on, so you said I think if it's like a some kind of abuse, right, it should obviously be reported to like Child Protective Services.
Yeah,
But
I
if it's
agree.
not if it's not that level and there's something else going on at home that's causing the child like stress at school, is causing them to be distracted to the point where they're seeking out help from the guidance counselor. Yeah, I think parents should know about that so that they can help their kid. I'm assuming they're not like monsters, right? I'm assuming they want to help their children. So like if
It's in the
I don't
bill.
really see an issue with. Go ahead.
Doobie, it's not a problem. It's in the bill. It specifically has an exception for if they believe that the child be a victim of abuse because of disclosure. So that's already in the bill. So that's a non-issue. Also,
I yeah,
I'll
Well, I
show
think
pictures
well,
of genderqueer read from Lawn Boy whenever you want, Prom guys. You don't have to mute me if you're so scared,
I'm
because
not
you know your
scared
stream
of.
will get taken down.
Well, first of all, I ain't scared of anything. But like when
Okay.
yeah, okay, whatever.
There's a reason those books are banned, in the
Hold on, so,
in schools.
to be clear, do you think, are you seriously saying that the from the reaction from the Florida book bans, right? Like all those books, all of them should have been banned, right? I'm sure we can find examples of something. No, I would say it goes too far. That maybe this one
So you can
might
find
be
examples
a
of where
dangerous.
you would be
Hold on.
pro book banning.
No. That's not the question. So do you think that simply allowing all these parents, right, and it's not even a lot of parents, it's just a few, like a coalition of a tiny few individuals who are doing the mass amount of book bans, so that they are doing these all with reason, that these are all pornography, that you I'm sure you can find something, of course, but are you saying that this cohort of books is all inappropriate?
The goalpost that you have now moved to is so insanely high of a bar that no political movement could ever survive. You
Okay,
went from
great.
these are banned books, right? That and like they're banning books, and then I said, would you like me to show images on your stream or read from these books? Some of these books that are banned that you're like, oh, it's terrible that they're banning, because we both know that they would violate Twitch's TOS, even though they're in middle schools. They're a violation of those
Yeah,
of that
and on the
TOS.
other
What
side, your bar
we're
is
now
so
moving
low
to.
to say that, well, there is a book, right? There are a few books that are problematic, that honestly shouldn't be within a school's library, and so that justifies the
Look,
law in
my
general.
problem is
Absolutely not.
Well,
no, my
Graham, do you have
my
any
problem is
examples
with
of
you
like
saying my problem is with you saying that these are banned books, and then me saying and acting like it's like conservatives waging a war against free thought and expression, and me being like, hey dude, little nuance here. some of these books are so bad they'd get your stream taken
I
down.
mean, to be
And then
fair,
you
to be
muted
fair to
me.
Prime, to be
And-
fair
and
to
so-
Prime,
and so
you
the-
can't read
the
Huckleberry
new-
Finn
the
on
new
stream. I
goalpost-
couldn't read Huckleberry
the
Finn.
new goalpost is, are you saying that the people in like Moms for Liberty and in all these different organizations are all banning or removing every single solitary book with specific and perfect children in mind things that would meet my standard of an appropriate book to remove? Obviously, we're going to have different fucking standards, and that every political movement is going to have some fucking wackos in it. Like, that's a silly standard. So no, I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that it's silly for you to just go banned books, and because there's some of them are a fucking problem.
I mean, that's not a
Obviously, they're a fucking problem.
I mean, yeah, but there's always some books, and I mean, even like, and you want some books that are engaging in hard questions for children, right? Like, I mean, there's a lot of books that I read in high school that we could not read on stream.
Yeah,
So,
but
like,
I
to
don't
act
need
like we're talking,
pedophile. I don't need
No,
Lawn Boy that describes in
okay,
descriptive detail grabbing the
but you,
engorged penis
okay,
of
but
your child
okay, I will
molester,
I
and
will
how
take
great
that.
you felt about it.
I will take that argument. What about books that engage with sexual assault? There are numerous examples in literature that we read in high school where they had to deal with sexual assault as a topic. Now, those are going to have graphic descriptions. To be fair to Prime's argument,
Mhm.
there is an issue whenever we're going to go and take these books and go, oh, we're taking it out just due to the sexuality aspect, and we're going to ignore books that have like very graphic descriptions of sexual assault that we had to deal with in reading in high school. And it's like there is a difference. I mean, to some extent, they're like,
Yeah,
I
the
mean,
difference
fair
is
that
the
argument.
context of the ideology that was being forced upon us now.
Well, no. The difference is also the context in which, like, the medium that this literature is being consumed. So, um, I'm glad. I'm glad Prime. Some of those books were like straight up pornography, right? And although perhaps you could have depictions of genitals or descriptions of sexual assault in health class, right, under a guided analysis from a teacher, like,
What
that's
about
one
English
thing,
lit?
right?
What about English literature?
Sure. That could be one thing. But like in this specific case, these books were available. My understanding is in like the school library were available without teacher guidance, without parental guidance. People could just go and literally take books which had very graphic depictions of sexual
Would you
intercourse.
ban Oedipus
On,
Rex?
I would do this.
Would you
I think
ban
that
Oedipus Rex, Lactoid?
there's a lot of things I'd ban from a K through 12 library, right?
I would
In
ban
terms of
public schools.
quote unquote banning it, right? So banning it in this case just means we're not paying to have those copies in the library, right? So okay, what books are we not going to pay to have in the library? Not only is it going to be all pornography, all depictions of nudity,
How about
but
Greek
it's also going
mythology?
to, but also like Mein Kampf, right? I'm not going to allow that either, right? That's overtly political, because I don't want a bunch of kids picking up Mein Kampf, reading it on their own time, and becoming Nazis. Maybe you could have Mein Kampf in a guided reading. Maybe you could have like a specific contextual way of teaching that. But there are apps like I'm not, and I know the immediate objection is going to be, oh, are you comparing the LGBTQ community to Hitler? I'm not. There's obviously distinctions, okay, but like the idea of where is like obviously we all agree on some political lines of like political literature that we don't want to be consumed by students in a non-supervised manner. I think that line is also a little bit gray, and I think there's reasonable arguments about like where to put that line.
I just like
I
then
want
you're gonna start banning Greek mythology next, and then we're gonna start banning like I mean that's or like the play like Shakespeare. I mean you're gonna start banning all sorts of stuff if we get to that point. I mean I actually think I'm
Stop
like
banning.
fall
Yes.
Ban the Bible. But so hey, sorry, Scott, read the passage. Go ahead. Do
What
it.
passage?
You said
You
you were
want me
going
to
to
read
read
Lawn
something.
Boy?
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, okay, cool. I'll pull up quote. Just give me a minute. Like you guys go so I can find the one in question.
Wait,
While
Prem,
he's
so
looking
do you
for
know of
that-
any? Well, I was gonna ask Prem. Do you know of any books that you think where you think they've gone too far? Because I'm sure maybe a handful exists, but I'd imagine that the vast majority of books that they've banned have been for good reason.
Okay, let's see. I've got like literally a list of all the banned books. There's
I saw that too.
Okay, yeah, there's an ongoing list here. So we can, I don't know. Let's see if we can get a description of a few of these as we go through. I'm just like doing a few Google searches here.
I'm sorry.
Oh,
to flood these
Ready Player
questions.
One. Hold on. Ready Player One was banned. Ready Player One.
Here you go. So here's here's a fun little passage
Go
from a
ahead.
book that was in middle schools, right?
Is
There's
this
one
lawn? Is
thing
this
I'd
lawn
never
boy or lawn?
Yeah,
the-
lawn boy.
Yeah, sure.
Gender queer is I mean, like, you could go into that, but those are mostly just a lot of graphic images. That's the number one banned book, and that's also the one that they took out of Loudoun County after parents got mad, and then they secretly put it back in schools when no one was paying attention,
Sure.
even though they had already stated that they would, because obviously there's no political agenda. Why would you intentionally put something back in secretly? But anyways, lawn boy. But there's one thing I'd never tell Nick in a million years. Not that it really matters. In fourth grade, at a church youth group meeting out in the bushes behind the parsonage, I touched Doug Gobble's dick, and he touched mine. In fact, there were even some mouths involved. It's not something I'd even think about all these years later, except that Gobble is the hottest real estate agent in Kitsap County. His face is all over town, signs, billboard, Christ, even on shopping carts. Do you know what I think? Do you know what I think 3 times a day when I see his picture? I wonder all these years later why he just kicked our friendship to the curb like that. Was it a shame? All I could think about, and here's another passage from Longboy, all I could think about while he was chatting up over the rim of his cappuccino was his little salamander between my fourth grade fingers, rapidly engorging with blood. Like that. Saying that's a banned book that you shouldn't have random fucking middle school kids randomly reading is not fucking crazy, dude.
So
Like, maybe child molester type shit, you know, we fucking do in context with a teacher.
So
not at all.
Well, what you talked about just then is not child molestation in that specific context. So like, I'm glad I had you read that out, because I was like thinking like I remember this, that they had
Wait, how old was Dan Gobble when this happened? Was he fourth grade too, or was he?
So you have 2 children that had sex, and then there's the fantasies of the person as an adult being so excited when they were children about sex, and getting excited thinking about his little salamander between my fourth grade fingers.
Yeah.
So you've never remember like wait, hold on. Like I don't understand how that's child molestation. I get that you're trying to make it child molestation, but if you've never had like say you've had sex with somebody, you don't think back on that sexual experience like with that person like that you had, like you never think about that ever. Like that's child molestation if you had sex with somebody while you were 16 and you thought about it.
No, what I'm talking about
What
is you have
about
an individual fantasizing about sexual acts with fourth graders written explicitly in a book.
It was a fourth grader. Person. It was a fourth grader that he was when he was fourth grade. And he had like that. I'm
sure you'd let this dude babysit your children any day.
That's not the point I'm making here, man. Like you're being
not the point.
You're being
disingenuous. Motherfucker
you're
kids.
You're honestly being disingenuous with this, and that's really what's happening.
And look how he moves the goalposts about like
that's exactly what's happening. I'm like I'm sorry, like you're like I fall on the side of hey, let's protect the kids. I've already made this earlier, like whatever. But what you're describing is not child molestation, even though you're trying to make it out to be. Like this was a fourth grader that has sex with a fourth grader, and they're thinking about this image later in life.
Insanely, the Overton window has moved.
No, that's not an insane thing.
Like,
you're
lying about how we should
literally
keep
lying.
In schools.
I'm
not lying when I'm saying that this is child molester shit. When you have books specifically in fucking middle school,
I preach about the slippery slope all the time
between children.
Do you
man is excited by it.
Wait, do you guys not think a child can molest another child?
But hold on.
That's a whole different argument. That's a whole different argument.
It's literally not.
Were they having? Was it consensual? You can do people sex at 16.
Fourth graders. It's fourth grade.
Hold on.
There were kids pregnant from having sex with each other at 5th and 6th grade.
I'll deal this directly. Exactly, Gibbs. Right? Kids have sexual interactions. They do. Young kids have sexual interactions. Now, we should discourage that certainly. But like they have these things happen within life that aren't great, aren't savory. Let's move it away from specifically sex. We'll go back. Well, let's move it away specifically from sex, right? And talk about physical abuse. And we'll do that between students, right? Like kids getting beat up. And having to deal with that and trying to put that in context. Why are these people hurting me? No matter what I seem to do, these people seem to hurt me. Then I find a book that describes my experiences, that helps me put it into context. Yeah, this is what I was feeling. This is an example of someone who went through what I did, and that gives me strength, right? Like, we can understand, at least I hope we can, that within the context of physical abuse, even if it's from other minors, that having your experiences reflected back at you and maybe trying to understand what someone else was feeling helps a person deal with their current situation. That's just how humans work, right? That's why people find books inspiring in the first place, right? These types of books. Now, moving it back to a sexual context, yeah, these kids do have sexual interactions between each other, and they do fantasize about that. Yeah, the gay boys are attracted to other gay boys, and they think about those things. Yeah, not a big deal. Also, in those libraries, though, we have descriptions of like heterosexual interactions all the time, right? Those things aren't getting banned. Simple heterosexual interactions, and as we know, heterosexual interactions can be extremely uncomfortable, can be extremely problematic, but they aren't being targeted in the same way. So I'm going to put that up, and I'm going to give you a chance to respond. Just quickly, I want to say to Doobie, just like a quick example, because you asked me for examples of books that are being banned, right? Ta-Nehisi Coates' Between the World and Me, right? Here's the Wikipedia description of that, right? So, in a 2015 nonfiction book written by American author Ta-Nehisi Coates, it was written by Coates as a letter to his then teenage son about his perception of what the feelings, symbolism, and realities associated with being black in the United States are. Coates recapitulates American history and explains to his son racist violence that has been woven into American culture, or at least about that. Coates draws from an abridged autobiographical account of his youth in Baltimore, dealing his beliefs. I'm sorry, this Wikipedia article has a bunch of grammatical errors, so I'm just reading those. So I'm just gonna read it.
Wikipedia happens sometimes.
Yeah, I have. I'm sorry. Yeah, dealing his beliefs about what are the ways in which to him institutions like schools, the local police, and even the streets discipline, endanger, and threaten to disembody black men and women. This is an example of one. And a bunch of black or books aimed at black individuals, especially talking about racism, have been banned as well. So I'll get that out there. DB can respond later.
Was that banned by the left or the right?
Was that banned by the left or the right? I don't think this tells us the political alignments of the person.
Yeah, I just know because there's some books that are like, these books are banned, and it's like To Kill a Mockingbird, and it's like it's lefties that got To Kill a Mockingbird banned, right? Like, it wasn't righties, because it used the N-word and they didn't like the racial tones of it because they thought it was inappropriate.
Yeah, and Huckleberry Finn is like another one that, yeah. I mean, I disagree with all these book bans, so I mean, it's not a problem for me. But sorry, I'll let Lacto respond, then Gibbs.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and read. I'll have to take the time to actually read that book to find out why it was removed. Just looking at it, it doesn't appear to be sexual. It just appears to be hyperpolitical, which, again,
talking about racism.
To some extent, yeah. I mean, it can be, for sure. So it depends on the frame. It depends on the narrative that you use. You can use a narrative to frame anything.
History.
Yeah, you can use a narrative to frame anything any way. You can use a narrative to push certain prescriptive goals, as opposed to or insinuating that certain prescriptive goals are the obvious implication.
I hear you. I'm with you that racism can be is deeply political, but are you saying that your prescription then is to ban such a book that under Lactoid's version of this? Lactoid would say that this isn't allowed because it's vocally political. It's as political. You haven't read the book, right? But it's as political as you imagine it to be. You're saying that descriptions of minorities facing racism and try to contextualize that from themselves, that shouldn't be allowed.
It depends how it's written, right? In the same way that, if there was a book that,
in the worst way, in the worst way,
yeah, in the worst way, then absolutely, right? Because I can imagine maybe something similar, right? Let's say you had a book written about white genocide, and it really went into the Haitian genocide and focused highly on that and left out everything else, right? Is it true? Yeah, but is it true, right? Are people walking away from this experience with a better understanding of the actual historicity of things? Are people walking away with like a more statistically sound understanding of the world? If so, then maybe it does have a place like in a educational context of a public school. If not, if there's like problems with that, then yeah, maybe that shouldn't be in a K through 12 school library.
Well, then who decides that when it comes to racism then?
When I brought it before about like the quote unquote white genocide book that potentially could get published, ultimately public schools are dictated by democracy. That's the problem when it comes to public schools. So yes, what people like, who determines what is too politically extremist is going to be the voters by function. It has to be. Otherwise, you're not going to have any consistent basis for planning Mein Kampf.
But it's not simply the voters. I think it's one thing to say like the voters that like we're having a democratic experience where we're talking about like these individual books. What's happening is individual parents are going parents. I'm not even sure they're all parents because there's a group of these conservative individuals that are just going from school to school to school and doing spannings. But putting the other
those
side,
school boards are elected by the local population.
Yeah, but like if you complain, I'll pull it up. But if you complain about it, then the books have to be removed.
Are you criticizing the concept of like a small but vocal? Hold on, real quick. Are you criticizing the concept of a small but vocal minority going and making their voices heard and pressuring public officials into changing legislation?
No, I'm saying that like if we that they can go like I don't have a problem people going to like a school board and discussing a thing, right? Because the school board is elected and like you can express yourself there. That's fine. But making it so that you put so much power in randoms to say that this is a danger. That's my issue. And those randoms seem to be and we can see a pattern of them specifically going after minorities, sexual and racial minorities. Yeah, that's a problem. That like you've created a worse state of affairs.
Let me respond to this. I understand the claim. I'm just going to reject the claim, which is, these school boards are elected officials. Of course, you're going to have small but vocal minorities, as is the case with all people who tend to attend these meetings, right? They're going to be people who are highly invested. Almost nobody else attends these kind of meetings, this is true with politics generally. All of us here are a small but vocal minority, right? You think most people, like in America, what's the voting rate in this country? Like, and then we look at the voting rate, like how many of them actually like know anything, like or read anything about any of this shit? They don't particularly care. So this idea of a small but vocal minority going to their elected officials and saying, "Hey, I heard this was like stupid. What are your guys' answers to this?" First of all, there's nothing wrong with that whatsoever. So I don't even see why that's a problem. Like it's not that the people who are vocal have the political power. It's that they are going and protesting or advocating for themselves in front of elected officials, which is quite literally the purpose of these board meetings, right? The purpose is to get feedback from the public. I don't know how you could ever like not let people come in and talk about it. So yeah, I think it's perfectly rational for public schools to control, to some extent, the political discourse of minors. I think it's perfectly fine to not have Mein Kampf in a school library. I think it's perfectly fine to not have the Communist Manifesto, to maybe not have like certain Greek writings or certain religious writings that are particularly gruesome. I think it's also rational that if there's texts that maybe portray race issues in a way that people are going to walk away being misled, I think that the school does have a reason at that point to, again, remove it from the school libraries, maybe have some kind of guided reading on it, maybe have some kind of guided discussion, but just let the kids just go and read it? Absolutely not. Okay, for a lot of political content. And then when it comes to I want to talk about this before we move off of it. When it comes to the pornography, okay? So the political content's one thing, okay? When it comes to the pornography, I'm going to morally grandstand for a second. The passages that Scott read are disgusting. Morally, I'm sorry. It's just absolutely like revolting. I don't think it's a gay thing. If you could show me any kind of similar passage where somebody describes like a woman like grabbing his salamander in the 4th grade, that should also not be allowed. Okay, straight up, that should not be allowed.
What if it was high school?
It's a girl. It's a girl.
What if it's high school? What if it's high school?
So if it's a guided reading in a health class, sure. If not, then no. Okay. And then on top of that, this book didn't just include these passages. My understanding is there was some pretty maybe this was just genderqueer. Scott, for Lawn Boy, did that book
is the one with all the images?
All the images. Okay,
Genderqueer
so
is the most is just out of respect for Prime, I'm not putting it up, even if he's like, do it, because like it's obviously a violation of Twitch's TOS. And
Yeah,
this
it
book was
is.
in middle schools, right? Like it's.
But hold on, I
shows
got one.
sexual, all kinds of sexual acts.
I have a book right here in my hand. I bought at a Scholastic book fair in 2001. All right, this was bought in 2001, called The Voice of Blood. I found out later, after I started reading it, that someone mislabeled it as a vampire novel. This is a 1-hour smut read, is what this is. And this is a book I bought at the Scholastic book fair, and as far as I know, it's not banned on any lists. I'm going to read just a portion of the passage because this is allowed in schools, and it's between a man and a woman of consensual age. Now, this is loud, but the other thing's pornography, right? Oh well, of course he
What is
didn't know.
loud?
Allowed.
Allowed. I know my Texas accent a little hard.
Oh,
For
Permissible.
okay,
Okay,
my bad.
wait,
Fair enough.
repeat what you just said at the end there. You said this is 2 adults of consensual age. This is
Right,
not child
but
molestation.
and this
You
is
say-
what I consider
You say
pornography.
this is
This is
allowed.
what I can remember. This is a 1-hour smut read, and this is
Okay,
in the,
yeah.
this is
Let
in
him-
the
let him-
library.
It's
let
not
me
as
read it
bad
out.
as the child pornography. Go ahead.
It's let
I'm
him read it
going
out,
to
and then we
stop
can
at this.
address it.
I'm going to stop at the part where it gets to TOS. He didn't know. I didn't either. All I just wanted to do is go down on it. I was terribly, terribly attached to it. I had his, we'll call it a fluid, all over my body, in my mouth, my another word that we can't say, everywhere. His sweat, his tears, every drop of his body. And that, I think, it just provocatively continues to go on for about 15 pages of this sexual
Should that be
encounter.
in middle schools?
Don't let it in middle
random
schools.
people.
Easy.
And I bought it in middle school in 2001.
I
So
don't care.
That was an
they made a
oversight.
mistake.
no, because
Like-
it's still not banned. It's still not banned in these schools. If you look up this
It
book,
should be.
it
You
should
Go
should
be.
be.
pressure your
Library
school
right now.
board.
The point that Prime is making, and the point I'm really making, is that I have a problem when we start banning stuff in general, especially when it's political. I disagree with you. I think we should have Mindkev in every school. We should be talking about how evil
In
it is.
kindergarten? What about
Well,
that?
not in kindergarten, but whenever
Oh, why? Why not? You want to ban
We
any
have a
books?
line.
no, you know the difference. There's a difference, right? This is a middle school book. You start taking government classes,
But
whatever.
you know,
You have to take
this
health
is where
classes.
the Overton window and my
No,
subjective
that's not you.
preference is
This is
currently
2000.
on.
This is 2001, bro. The
I don't
Overton
have
window.
any fucking
This
principles.
is
I just
2001.
argue
The
whataboutism for the
no,
left.
no, it's not whataboutism. I'm not even a left. This is 2001.
I don't know. You
The
sound like
over
a fucking groomer to me, dude.
no,
You
because you're
want that
the
book
left.
in school
No,
with children?
you're not even letting me finish. I
Okay,
know that.
groomer.
I know your whole tactic is sit here and try to like interrupt everybody and throw them off the game, but that's not going to work here, Papa. Here's
Only
what
when you're
happened.
saying dumb shit.
Well, you just said dumb shit the whole time, and I let you say it. So let me tell you something here. Here's the thing. This is a book 2001 was purchased. This is the argument you're making. This was in a middle school. As far as I know, they still have a copy in the middle school library, right? I agree. This probably accounts as pornography. Shouldn't be in it.
So
But
far as I know,
hey, listen.
you just agreed. It
Hey,
shouldn't
wait,
be
wait,
there.
wait, hold on. Let him finish,
so-
and you can
So
respond.
here's my thing. It's in the library. Now, I haven't seen anybody go out there and go and try and start preaching, hey, we need to ban this book. It's only the certain political books that, like the one that you just read, that they're going after. Now, if we're going to go after them, let's go after all of them that are this way. But y'all, and I know Lactoid's sitting here going, yeah, sure, we should do that. But you're sitting here and you're acting like you're being disingenuous. And that's my whole problem with this
No,
thing.
I'm not. You're just not smart enough to keep up. Dude,
No, I'm very
do
smart.
you remember
I'm
how
very
big that
smart.
library was?
Jesus
Yeah, but don't make me
Do you
Christ.
remember how
do
big that library was?
I mean, it seems to me like
Do you
you're not
remember how
very
big that
smart
library
if
was?
you don't understand that a sex book has been allowed, and then you're
No,
going to
I
see here
understand.
that there's
You're
no
just
bearing
too
on the
fucking stupid to
conversation.
catch
And then
up.
you're going to talk about the Overton
Dude,
window
how
when this
big
is
are
15
middle school
years.
libraries?
This is 15 years ago. Overton window was further right then, Papa. So you're totally
Dog,
wrong. You're totally off base.
Dog,
English,
stop
Papa. Do
being
you speak
stupid.
it? Do you
Stop.
speak English? Do you know
Just
what the Overton
fucking
window is?
catch up.
This is
Listen,
15 years ago. Do you
listen.
understand how time works? You know,
I understand
just-
everything you're saying.
you
Like
clearly
you
don't.
just fucking no. I clearly do. You just can't, dog. So first of all,
You're just being
you
disingenuous.
admit that.
I'm just calling
No,
you
I'm
on
not
it.
being disingenuous. Just stop. You can't.
Okay.
You please try and catch up, dude.
Oh, I've caught
Catch
up.
to like to
I've caught
middle
up
school
to being
reading level.
disingenuous. Oh,
All right?
yeah. Okay.
So here we are. Hear me out. All right.
The guy that couldn't figure out how to make his
The middle school.
property is liberty go the right way on a reverse thing on a thing is trying to teach me how to read when everything going the right way on mine. But you got me. Teach me. This with your dyslexia. I got you. Teach me. I'm ready.
I'm not dyslexic. I'm
I'm clearly
recording.
on
It
it,
looks
public.
fine on my
Oh,
recording.
Oh,
I
that's
don't
great.
care what it looks like on yours.
Got it.
It's
Anyways.
11:40. I really need to bounce.
Okay, bye.
Yeah.
Yeah, I apologize. My
Take care,
brain
Ty.
melted probably about
Well.
2 hours ago. You all have a good one.
All right.
Catch you later, Tiberius.
Listen, you already admitted that you have no idea whether or not this school is in that whether or not this book is in those schools. If you understand and just have a basic memory of what the library looked like at your middle school, and then you go and drive to your county's public library, you'll recognize that the library at your middle school is very small, and that the library for your county is likely 10, 20, 30 times larger. And you know what? All of the books in the world are not in your county's library. See, the funny thing is just because there hasn't been a crusade against a specific book doesn't mean that that book is automatically in that school's library. It was 15 years ago, and you admitted that it was mislabeled, that it was an oversight, that people didn't realize that it was a smut
I'm
book.
assuming it was
And
oversight.
even-
It could have been just the
and-
Christian right allowing straight smut. Apparently, that's what we could be arguing. Prime could be arguing that, but you
I don't
Christian
think
right
that's
freak
true.
the fuck
Well,
out
I'm
about
just
Harry
saying,
Potter.
you've over here
All
said
right?
such a terrible argument and terrible disingenuous argument, I might add. But
It's not a terrible argument. You just don't know what the fuck I'm talking about.
Bro, yeah, because you're sitting here such big brain concepts like, oh, the fourth grade guy was sitting here thinking about his fourth grade sex, and that was child molestation. That's such a big brain take. Nobody can
It
understand.
literally
I'm sorry.
was.
It's not, bro. It's not. It's not.
No,
You're
bro,
wrong.
hold on. If they made a movie adaptation to that book, would it be illegal?
Sorry, let me tell you something, Papa. In fifth grade, there were like 1/8 of my class had
All right,
kids.
groomer. He won't
Like-
answer the
like one
question
kid-
because he
I'm
knows the
not
answer.
asking.
It's not a
No, no, hold on.
What I'm saying is-
Wait. We have a
hold on,
novel.
hold on.
We have a novel that glorifies
human
a
experience.
sexual. No.
It is
We have
a
a
human
novel.
experience that
Okay,
happens.
no.
This is
Fourth
not
graders.
advocating
No, 9 to 10-year-olds fucking is not a human experience.
It
That's a
happens, bro.
problem.
It
It's a
happens
crime,
worldwide.
right?
It happens worldwide.
I understand murder happens worldwide. Genocide happens
You
worldwide.
don't want to
So
talk about crime, so you want to ban all books that talk about murder and genocide? That's ridiculous. You see the issue with your
I
argument?
want to ban books that glorify genocide.
Oh, so
Hold
you
on,
don't want to watch
I
what's
want-
for
I wanna
Rwanda?
ban-
You wouldn't-
I
you
want to ban.
Rwanda?
I want to ban.
ban
Yes,
that?
I want to ban books that glorify genocide in middle school libraries.
Nobody's
Call me
saying
an
that
extremist.
glorifies that. How was that even glorified?
This novel
It's not-
glorifies
It
fourth
wasn't
grade sex.
glorified.
The
It wasn't
relationship.
glorified. That was not a glorifying of anything. He literally is talking about his salad. That is not a good way to describe something, bro. Like you're saying it's glorifying when it's sitting here
Dude,
talking
you are
about a
fucking
human
batshit
experience.
groomer crazy right
No,
now.
I'm not
All
groomer.
I can
You
do
can
is
sit here and
think
call
about
me a
how
groomer
he
all
was
you want.
chatting me up
But you're
over the
sitting here
rim
just
of his
lying, bro.
cappuccino.
You're
There was
lying.
this little
You're lying.
salamander between my fourth grade fingers, rapidly engorging with blood. This
Bro,
dude's
you can-
fucking getting off about it as he's writing the shit.
Bro, you're sitting here.
What are you talking
It
about?
reads like a pornography. It
It
does.
reads like a smut novel.
It doesn't sound half as bad as what I read. But that's
Rapidly-
been allowed.
Gibbs, rapidly engorging in
How is that
blood.
not
What the
whataboutism?
fuck?
I mean, bro, I couldn't even read the rest of the sentences there because I know it was TOS. Like we would have all been banned. And that's my point: is you're picking and choosing.
Yeah, your point
that's
is
the problem.
whataboutism and it's bad, and you
No, it's
admitted
not what
that
about
that
it.
book shouldn't be there.
No, it's
and
a
you admitted
real-
that it was mislabeled.
It's not
and you
what
admitted that you had
aboutism
no idea
when I
what
have
the
a
book was.
physical copy. It's not what aboutism when I have the physical copy in my hand and
Do
you
you
have
know
the
what
list.
whataboutism
These-
is?
Yes, bro, I know what aboutism is. You're saying, oh, just
Can you
'cause-
explain it right now without Googling it?
bro. You're just arguing. Oh, I'm saying, oh, because of this.
Can
and
you
this.
explain
What
it
about
right
it?
now without Googling it? What
Yes,
is
bro.
whataboutism?
Everybody that's in the political Twitch poll knows what whataboutism. By literal definition, sure. But you're sitting here, you're
So?
trying to dismiss
except-
what I'm
except you're
saying by
stalling.
saying it's whataboutism. Because
So,
I'm not
look-
engaging in your stupidity,
Yeah.
bro.
Okay.
You're
So I
literally
want
being-
to. I want to
discredit me.
I want to move past that point. I want to move past
I'm
that
not a
point.
groomer. You're bro,
Sure.
if you're not a
Okay.
groomer,
So I want
you're
to be
the
very.
groomer here.
So
Like, let's talk about groomers, bro. With your
Sure.
pedo stash, and you get your picture of this child on the wall. That looks pedophilia, bro. Why are you putting pictures of like drawings
My
of children in
son?
the background? Yeah, that's pedo, bro. Are you offering up incest with your child? That's the argument you're making right here, bro. It sounds stupid.
My-
You know
my-
why?
my
Because
son
that's how
is
stupid
Pepe
your argument
Duman.
is. That's how
Is
stupid your argument is.
pedophilia?
It looks pedophilia to me, bro. It sounds pedophilia. So there you go.
Well,
That's the argument you're making. That's the argument you're making.
Not
Do you
mine.
see? Do you
I'm
see
gonna
how?
stay where I
Do you
live.
see how
Okay.
If
stupid
only it
this
was a
sounds?
book describing fourth grade penis, then it wouldn't be pornography.
You see how stupid this sounds? It sounds stupid because it is stupid. That's how disingenuous your argument is. You
So-
don't have a real point.
Okay.
so you
Okay.
resort
Okay.
to name
Okay. We
calling,
got it.
what
We got
about
it. We got it.
and
We
call
got
people
everyone.
groomers. That's what
We
you're
got
doing.
it.
You get it.
We
You're
got
just
it.
scalloping because you're losing bad.
No, I'm not losing.
Got
You're,
it.
sitting-
We got-
you're literally dropping the name calling.
guys.
What about it? Because you have no argument.
Guys, we got it. Great, thank you. We're already over time. I really actually want to engage more of this topic with the actors here. Actually, so from what I've heard of was Lawn Boy. Or I always forget the title, but what I've heard of this book, it doesn't seem like a book that needs to be banned. It's describing an experience, right? That a person has from their past.
That's fucked up, dude.
Yeah,
Come on.
that's fine. That's fine. That's fine
Like,
for you.
don't do this for
That's
political
fine.
points, man. Come
That's
on.
fine for you.
Like, be a human here. You know
Sure.
that you don't want fucking middle school kids reading about fucking glorified sexual experiences with fucking children, man. You know that you don't
No,
want that.
actually,
maybe
no.
maybe you don't agree with book banning as a concept, but you know that you don't want fucking kids reading this. And if you're telling me that you don't want
What
kids
you've
reading
described,
that,
I'm fine.
then you're a sick, fucked up person.
Yeah, sure. Well, then, sure. Then categorize me from whatever you like. From what I have heard of this book, right? What was just read, actually, it's fine. Actually, talking about these experiences, these real life experiences, because we don't give even within these schools. So the other part of the law we didn't get to talk about is like the banning of gay instructions from K through 8. We didn't even get to that part, the expanded version of this law. Banning that. That's a problem. Having when kids are in middle school and don't get proper sex education, don't understand these things. Like I can say, hey, I don't want kids to be having sexual relationships. In fact, I've said many times, I want to raise the age of
Consent?
age of majority, right? To 25. Said that many times. I like to do that. However, I can understand that in the real world, people don't follow things are uncontrolled and kids get up to things. And so they should be able to contextualize their own experiences. You can do that as a straight kid. You get messages all over the case that normalize heterosexual interactions, that gives you an idea how these things are supposed to go, that you never run out of that. But when we're talking about gay kids, and we're talking about descriptions that I guess as a straight man I'm not particularly into. I'm not particularly into the engorged 9-year-old penises or whatever the fuck. It's not something I'm into. However, when I was that age, I'd be more interested into like a description about like an attractive girl. That would be something.
Shouldn't be reading fucking hentai manga when you're fucking 9, right? Like, no.
Is that hentai? Just describing that, like, hey, I got excited over this. Is that hentai? That's like, I mean, because I know hentai because I actually do read a lot of fucking hentai. I've made that very clear over the years. I love that stuff. I am exactly that kind of degenerate. I know what that degeneracy looks like, and that's not it. That's not it.
The thing is,
I mean, nobody complained about Twilight. Nobody complained about Twilight. I'm just saying, there's a lot of sex stuff in there, but no, once we start getting real specific, I don't know.
Twilight in fucking middle school libraries, number one, and number two. This is the
problem.
This is the problem with the way that we argue and understand the problem, which is that I agree, Prime Guys. You absolutely should have books and things given to children where that they can find themselves that contextualize their sexual identity and their sexual preferences so that they can discover themselves, right? I think by Erik Erikson's psychosocial model, the appropriate age developmentally for that, and this would be the number one model used by developmental psychologists, would probably be about 14, right? Would be about high school. From a Piagetian perspective, you might get a little bit earlier, though, of course, Piaget is often, kind of criticized for his models being a little too early or a little too late, right? And so like cognitive psychologists kind of try and clean up his models. But if we want to take Erik Erikson's position, right? The problem is identity versus role confusion is the stage around 14 where you have to discover who you are on your own. And if you've been indoctrinated into these systems and to these ideologies, queer theory, that is an assault on children, a philosophical assault that is subsumed pedagogy in the United States. No, we can't have these things. That's the problem. It's not that when you isolate these things, you're right. Kids should be able to explore and find themselves free of authoritarian means and measures so that they can better express and understand themselves and be in a liberal, free society where they understand who they are without indoctrination of any kind, right? The LGBT not being indoctrinated into the normalization of heterosexual relationships to such a degree that they feel guilty or shame because, they're not breeding, et cetera, et cetera. The problem is that you individuate it. And I use this analogy often because this is, I think it really helps understand it, is that There's nothing wrong with me buying a hammer at Lowe's. There's buying a hammer at Lowe's is a perfectly normal thing to do. And there's nothing wrong with me buying duct tape at Lowe's. And there's nothing wrong with me buying zip ties at Lowe's. And there's nothing wrong with me buying lye or a tarp or a whole or some rope, in some bundles, or maybe some gardening equipment like chloroform or something, for certain projects I have. But if I go to the cash register and I buy all of these things, you should have some fucking questions, especially if I look just like a known serial killer running around, right? And that's the issue here, is that you're right that some of these things aren't necessarily, when individuated, aren't necessarily problematic, but it doesn't make sense when you understand that transformative social emotional learning is pushed on to well over 33% of children. It doesn't make sense when Pedagogy of the Oppressed, which is a book that is specifically designed for how to teach people in a specific way to bring about the Marxist revolution, is the #1 cited social science book in all of the world, with over 480,000 citations. That's like 300,000 more than Sigmund Freud's in any of his works. Right? When you start to understand the problem in a full scope, yeah, and the conflict is the public education system has to be for everyone. You cannot have freedom and liberty and make everybody happy with a system that steals people's tax monies and gives one education for everybody. So there's
So
a democratic
It's really
process
amazing to
to
hear y'all
clean
are
this
conservative
ideology
argue for
out.
1984. That's
Yeah.
in fact, I'm a little disappointed in you. You're arguing for 1984 and Fahrenheit 9/11, right? That's what y'all are arguing for right now, basically.
So
Like, this is crazy to me to hear
Yeah, more
conservatives.
bad faith
Okay.
arguments from a guy that can't follow what I'm talking
Listen,
about. We get
yeah,
it,
I mean, listen, Papa. The
Okay.
only
You're
guy that
fucking
hears
Patsy.
groomer.
You're not a
Listen,
conservative.
you're literally a groomer. You have a picture that's a drawing that looks like you're taking a golden shower in a kid's head. And you're
Okay,
talking about
okay. Let's move away from that. I don't want to talk about Scott's
Why are you
kid.
so sexually attracted
Let's-
to my fucking son, dude?
That's really
let's-
gross.
Fuck
that
is
you would
wrong with
Let's
consider a son up there
leave.
like
Let's
that. Gross.
leave Scott's child, who I'm sure is lovely, out
Right.
of this, please. Please, let's just not do that. Let's just leave it alone.
We're eating beignets. you fucking weirdo.
It's
Oh
okay.
yeah, bananas. Yeah, I'm some. Okay, real
I really
phallic.
want to engage with you guys on this more, but like we've already run out of time. I don't want to keep anyone here who doesn't want to be here. So again, if you need to leave, then feel free to do so. I think
I'm not
that
streaming anymore, so I tend to go a little longer. I don't need to leave. I'm fine.
okay.
Yeah, I actually do need to drop off.
Okay. But I do. I want to have a larger conversation with you specifically, because you're the one I have a bug in my ass with. But DB, thanks for being here, friend.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Talk to you
Take
later.
care, Doobie. Be well.
So I guess my problem with, I think maybe the thing that there's a disconnect is that you feel like this is, like you're saying, a larger issue, part of some sort of ideological invasion of schools. And like you are fine with like providing tools to fight it in whatever way it shows up. Correct?
I think to be a little bit more fair, and I know you're trying to be super fair and steel man me, and I appreciate it. I think it's also important to recognize that when you say whatever, no, I'm talking about this specific instance because I'm all for the abolishment of public schools. But I mean, like you can go back 2 years ago when I was talking to Blair White about legislation like this and other things, where I told her, like, I'm seeing a rise, like the right is, when the right can't solve a fucking problem, they get reactionary, they get heavy-handed, and they get bad, and shit gets bad. Like this is how you get fascism, is that the right doesn't take a scalpel to things. They do heavy-handed things that will solve the problem, but requires authoritarian government power. And I was laughed at, right? I was laughed at by like everybody on that fucking panel, with the exception of maybe like Taftash. And so, yeah, in this specific instance, I'm all for fucking enforcing it because I'm all for Hatch Act. But at the same time, I don't think that this is the right solution. I don't think this is the way that we do it. What we need to do is we need to defund public schools until they're gone.
Okay. Well,
I think it's an
fair.
overreaction to the right because they don't know what else to do.
Okay. So to finish my thought previously, is that like I don't acknowledge this like overall issue that there's some sort of dangerous ideology that's infecting our schools, and it's just like a difference of our opinion there, right? Like um I for the things that you have presented to me, and not just
Mhm.
talking about this individual book, but like
Mhm.
your view of this larger ideology, I don't see that as some dangerous stuff. And so when I'm looking at the uh, was when I'm
What's your
looking
line?
at the end result of this worldview where it says like we're under
Mhm.
threat, right? And so we have to do X, right? When I look at that, it seems like
It's
madness to me.
fascism.
Yeah.
It's fascism. That's the answer, right? That's the only
Oh,
way that the right knows how to respond to the brown shirts
okay.
throughout all
Okay.
of history. That's what they always do.
Fair enough. Okay. But like, what should? But you're not a statist, so I understand that. But for the rest of us that are statists, what should we do? Should we give in to them? Like, if these people are afraid of what we consider to be a boogeyman, what should we do? Should we simply say, well, okay, we'll ban these books, so or preemptively, so hopefully to not trigger a right wing backlash, or can we actually should we be fighting that and engaging with these ideas, right? Like I think libertarian books should be allowed within a library, right? And cat books, whatever the readings of that you prefer, they should be within a school library. I think depictions
Man,
of
economy, and state. For
um
anyone that is looking, right? All of Ayn Rand's works.
exactly right. Please go ahead and advertise that. That's fine with me. Um, I think that a depiction of violence against minorities should be within those libraries. I think there's a wide range so kids can understand the experience of the world, different perspectives. Especially, oh, I guess I'll leave it there. But my instincts is to expand the possible worldviews that people uh, can
Do you think
interact
that
with.
parents do you think that parents have no say so or right in what forms of media their children consume while at school?
Um, I um I think uh, um I guess I think that they could interact with the school district, like the school board, excuse me,
Right.
specifically.
Which is what they're
That,
doing, right?
but that's if an individual parent can get it pulled down,
Mhm.
right? Can just say like I want these things pulled down for review, and these books disappear. That's a problem. So like if we like I said before, I don't have a problem that the mechanism of
Mhm.
going through a school board, people like kicking up a fuss, and showing that this is an issue, right? Showing that there is a coalition behind them that says there's a problem. But just when you give a tool for people to abuse that power and then like have an ideological war through the school board, that's an
Sure.
issue for me.
I can respect that opinion, even though I'm an anarchist, right? Fuck all of it. I can respect that opinion, but the problem with that is that that's an issue about the mechanism by how you believe activist organizations may be overhanded in the way that they've utilized systems that weren't necessarily built to deal with like a big moms for liberty or a coalition that moves from school board to school board. If you want to have that conversation, that's one conversation. But if the question posed is, do you believe that there is some media that parents should have a right to keep their children from seeing, right? That parents have a right in what forms of media is consumed at school, right? Then you believe not necessarily in book bannings, but at the very least, a category or a section of a library that says this is stuff that you need parental permission to go see. So you do believe in some things not being widely available. Like perhaps I was a Muslim, right? And I had a child, and there was something that was deeply offensive to my faith, right? To Islam, right? Like Christopher Hitchens' God is not great, right? That just ruthlessly shits on Islam. Great book, you should read it, right? But I'm a
Well, all the
Muslim
other
parent.
religions
Do I, as a
too.
parent, have a well, yeah, but but it's called God is not great because it's making fun of Allahu Akbar, which is God is great, right? The title itself is literally a refutation of Islam.
No, no, yeah, I
And
know.
so right, and so like, would I not, as a parent, a Muslim parent, have a right to say that my kid shouldn't be granted unfettered access to God is not great so that they can come to the dinner table after they've been at school all day and like start speaking blasphemy at the kitchen table and screaming at me that I'm like an evil murderer because I'm a Muslim?
So, um, hmm, I think that you, I think that, and maybe my opinions on this might evolve. So again, if you could give me a bit of grace on this. Um, but specifically, I would say that a parent would have a right to like pull a kid like from a class, right? If we are gonna look over media, that individual parent could say that
Mm-hmm.
this isn't appropriate for my child, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I guess that's fine. Um, when it comes to um, hmm, I guess, but the problem is like books are a different thing because books are kind of like free form, right? Like or like not free form. They're like floating within that library, and they don't have those restrictions, right? It's not like this is a set time that we're going to interact with this. It's just there. And how do you
Right.
deal with that?
Yeah, it's entirely up to the child's will, right? But I would
Yeah.
assume that you don't believe that children can consent to anything without parental permission, right? So is there any line that you're willing to draw that says that even if these books aren't removed completely from the library, they should be in a section, the restricted section in Harry Potter, right? Like they should be in this section that says these books are kind of dangerous, like Mein Kampf or like, gender queer or like, pedagogy of the oppressed or like some the Communist Manifesto or like whatever, pick your poison, whatever book you think is distasteful to your personal sensibilities and that you don't think little children should be reading. At the very least there's a restricted section that you need parental permission in order to get a book from.
Um. Okay. I think one we have to recognize, and I'm going to deal with your question specifically, but one we have to recognize that these things, uh, like Mein Kampf was like never, as far as I know, never available to like elementary school kids, right? Because we seem to get these things confused. There was like always an
Yeah,
age
no, for sure.
appropriateness. Yeah,
For,
yeah,
for sure. Like all of the books in the library are picked by people, usually that work for the school board, right?
yeah.
And so, which lends some credence to the idea that there's, it's interesting that these books had to be put into the schools because activists wanted them in the schools to begin with. So when you say that like activists are stopping it, it's like, yeah, but they're reacting to activists that put these in the schools.
Yeah. Okay. But just to be clear, yeah, yeah. So like so for elementary, for middle school, for high school,
Mhm.
there's like quote unquote, like before the system, age appropriate books that are
Right.
placed in those, right?
Right.
But if you're saying that you're asking for a restricted section that we'll leave that loosely defined, and saying that we
Mhm.
can put books behind this and you get parental consent, I think I could sign on to that.
Oh, so if you're willing to sign on to that, my question to you then is why do they need to be in the school library at all if you need parental permission to get those books and they can just go to the regular library to get those books? Why do they need to be in the school library?
Why do they need to be in the school library if they can go to a regular library? Um,
Apart from like the niche case that like someone doesn't have the gas money, or like the bus ticket to go to the library, right? Like other than like that very specific scenario, why do they need to be in school libraries at all if we recognize that they're problematic to a core group of parents that have rights to ensure that this media is not consumed by their children?
well, to be very
They could
clear,
just go to the library.
well, to be very clear, that this attack against books is not limited to school libraries, right? And I know that you're not putting that within your
For sure.
scenario. I get that, right? But just
For
to
sure.
be clear, yeah, to the audience, that this is a library-wide public school and school library attack that's happening everywhere. And librarians, like public librarians, are quitting. Those libraries are shutting down. So this is not limited just to what's happening within the school.
Right. But just in my specific example, I'm
yeah,
saying
yeah.
these
I
books
get
would
you.
be in the library, but not in the school library.
I get you. Yeah. Um. Uh.
How are public libraries doing, by the way? Real good? Is there a lot of them? Because it doesn't seem like there's a lot of them. It seems like it's pretty hard to get to a public library.
Wait,
So it really defeats your whole argument, really. I
Well,
mean,
I know I'll engage with this hypothetical though. I want to engage
What?
with that because let's say that like public libraries are doing great. That
Your,
they're
your whole
on
status here, right? Like
every corner.
give
Yeah.
more money to fucking like make this bill, and
I
this
mean,
bill includes.
it's
more
just funny
funding
that
for
you're just
public
preaching like
libraries.
mad. I mean, you're just like the fact you're just preaching so hardcore on the censorship is just really crazy. But go on.
No, I mean, I guess I could see an
Come up when
argument
you have an argument.
if there
I mean, that
were
was an argument. I'm sorry you couldn't understand the word censorship.
if these were freely available in other places, then then I in public libraries, and public libraries are easily accessible, which they aren't in many cases. But if that was the case, then I guess I could see an argument as to like, well, anything that's like politically sensitive, however you define that,
Questionable.
yeah, should just be there rather than here. I guess I could see an argument. for that.
So if you see that, right, then I think what you're recognizing is that all of the actual demands from these people, with the exception of those that are attacking actual public libraries, right, but the school board wants to take certain books out of school is a perfectly reasonable demand that you actually have no problem with. What you have a problem with is that it's coming from screeching harpies of your political opponents that comes with it baggage of all of this things against leftism that they're cooking into the argument. But if you actually look at the policy decision, the demands, they're perfectly reasonable.
So hold on, but the thing that I was pushing back against was this bill, and its extension, like the Don't Say Gay bill, like that's what I was pushing
Right.
back in. So like talking about the mechanisms as to how that happens, that's relevant, correct? Right. So talking about the mechanism, especially since I agree that you can go to your school board any which way, right? Like you should be able to do that and take your concerns. Parents absolutely should have that outlet. But if the mechanism that is given to them is abused for an ideological war, that's an issue. So yeah, like talking about that part matters. And
Yeah, I don't necessarily disagree with you, even though like I'm not like pro democracy or anything, that like you shouldn't have a presumably democratic system that has like loopholes that allow a couple of people to like basically force a procedural vote that like uses up time and resources, that you can like have a small group of people signing petitions over and over again, that like makes it difficult for like people to do their goddamn job, that is like not actually a function of like the like local people changing school board leadership or something. Like I get that. I'm fine with that.
yeah. So yeah, I then I would agree with you when you're saying like my problem isn't with school book removals. Because yeah, I'm sure I could have found something that and that I disagree with, and then I can build a coalition that other people would disagree with. So yeah, I'm dealing with the mechanics of this particular bill, and yeah, live there. Lactoid.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly a tangent from
Yeah.
it's certainly a tangent, but it was it was based off of the anger and the idea of the banned books thing. So
Yeah.
so if we recognize that those things are important, right? You say that you say that you don't believe the kind of the narrative that I spun about queer theory, etc. And so I'm not going to convince you now. It's late at night. I get it. I just have one thing that I want to ask you. Assuming that I'm lying about this massive philosophical indoctrination that has poisoned pedagogy within the American education system and the NGOs that operate within it. Assuming you don't believe all of that, what's your line? And what I mean by what's your line is like, what is it that would be done from a leftist perspective in terms of indoctrinating children that if it's being done now or it was being done in the future, you would say this is too far and this train needs to stop? And I want to hold you to it because we
Okay.
might come back a year later and that line's already been crossed.
Sure. All right. Uh, if it's um uh, encouraging uh if it's encouraging violence or stigmatization of minorities, I guess. Yeah. Or not just minorities, sorry, but just like groups, you know. If it's
And you of course mean like in our current public education system, not at Princeton University where they're literally chanting globalize the intifada right now. And that it's encouraging violence against Jews worldwide to eradicate all Jews in our Ivy League institutions. You mean that in elementary school and stuff? Because if you meant that at the collegiate system, that happened like yesterday.
I I don't know the details of the thing that you're referring to. But if it's encouraging violence against groups, that'd be a problem. Like
Right. And I want to be more specific. When you say it, what do you mean by it? You mean like because I'm talking about the philosophy. Like I want to get like a concrete thing. Like what would you need to see to be like, holy shit, this has gone too far in terms of some form of children? Like let's be specific, middle school or high school?
middle school,
Would it be too far if it was high school kids that were being encouraged, right?
that are being encouraged to enact violence against groups, different
Minorities.
Yeah.
Or just different demographic groups. Okay.
Yeah,
so
different demographics.
I'll write that down.
Sure,
I'll go that, and then maybe we'll revisit this soon.
Yeah.
We'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, I'll leave it at that. And if we talk about it more, maybe I can better refine that. But
For sure.
But
For sure, I
I'm
understand.
fine with
But your
putting
gut,
a flag
your
there.
gut is like this has gone too far. If like it's no longer the ballot. I mean, like I could make the argument that the ballot box itself is violence. Like voting to use the state
It shows taxation,
to force people to do what you want is violence because it is. So I mean, like that line obviously was crossed like 100 years ago. But I know what you mean, right?
Yeah.
You mean like take to the streets and start beating up the Jews or the whites or whatever. Okay.
Yeah. Lacto, did you have anything you want to say? Because like
I think that when we look back at our childhood, we do this thing that I think is incorrect, where it's just a tip. Whenever we have memories, we tend to play the memories out in our head, and we're playing out those memories with our current mentality and our current knowledge, because
Adult brain,
with adult brain, and we don't. I don't think we fully appreciate just how stupid and impressionable we were when we were children. I don't think children are free, right? So freedom of speech and freedom of expression and all this stuff is not particular. It doesn't really apply to children because children are not free. They're constrained by the limitations of their own mind. You know, if you gave me control of an educational system, I could teach nothing but truths, and I could generate students that were fanatics, that were fanatics for one side only, that had a completely warped understanding of the entire world because they were taught the truth, but they were only taught true things that supported a very specific narrative, and everything else was ignored, right? So when I, when I hear, oh, you want to remove, this political literature from a library, even if there's political literature that is true, that doesn't mean that you get to teach it to children unsupervised. It doesn't mean that we don't have an interest in the things and the ideas that you're putting into the heads of people who are so impressionable that we all agree they can't consent to anything. And they can't consent to sex with each other. They can't consent to the ideas that they hear and the ideas they digest, and they defer to authority because they're children. So when you have an authority telling you something, or when you're reading a book that's in the school library, which immediately gives it authority because it's in the school. You're here in school, you're taught truth, right? And when you don't repeat the truth that you're taught in school, you're disciplined. So the school library can't have lies. The school library can't misrepresent. The school library is truth. And we have kids that go in there, and we need to be cognizant of that the shit they read in there, they're going to take as gospel. And I think it's perfectly valid for parents and the political system at large, this is just my opinion on it, to take an interest in what is the political content that's being put in school libraries. We all agree with this to a certain extent. Nobody here wants Mein Kampf. But I'm, I guess, more on that train in terms of there shouldn't be that. There also shouldn't be 80 million other things, right? And the content that is available for children should be curated. It should be. And step one of the curation is to remove glorification of sex between children or between children and adults. That's just step one. And that's just a non-negotiable element for me. As long as that's even in question, I'll defend the Republicans to the death. And every single time they do this shit. When it comes to the mix, whatever, yeah, that's ridiculous, right? But when it comes to them like, hey, these fucking books are a problem, they are. So like what? What am I supposed to do? Like I got two options in this country. What am I supposed to do?
That's the problem, is that the two are part of the same movement, and Republicans don't know how to deal with it, like I said, with a surgical knife, right? Because the MX, the woke ideology that is being forced onto teachers is and as they're going through school, right? I mean, like when you look at like, I'll tell you the next stage that most of you guys don't even know about, right? Which is sexual citizenship for children. That's the next movement that you'll see.
The UN said that, right?
Yeah, it's in UN writings. You're starting to see it in research in the Netherlands, right? And the concept here that is being taught for sexual citizenship of children to health education people right now, people that are in college that will then become, your sex ed teachers in America, right? Is that children need to be sexually liberated and not and that they're not innocent in the way that we think that they're innocent, and that they actually need to be free and open to explore and engage in all of the sexual activity with each other, and that trying to stop this is actually a myth that conservatives created in terms of the myth of childhood innocence. And this is starting to permeate the literature. You're seeing it in Australia. You're seeing it in kind of the Nordic countries, and you're going to start seeing it much sooner. And so, like, that's the problem, is that conservatives don't know how to deal with one without the other. It's okay to get rid of a couple of books, but when you have teachers that have this ideology that are promulgating it, like it's too difficult to deal with at an individual level. The market can, private schools can, because private schools just fire people. But you can't do that in public schools. You have to come up with some red flag identifier thing. And so what they do is sweeping authoritarian measures. It's the only way they know how to solve the problem. And it'll solve the problem, but it comes with new problems, which is we now have a state apparatus that specifically targets LGBT people as a means of being problematic in their own identities, because we don't know how to solve this greater problem without these measures. And the market's the only one that's actually able to do so. But the Republicans are not free market. They're not capitalists. They're socialists. And so what they'll do is what all socialists have done over time when their enemy starts winning and gaining institutional power, is that they'll gain their own power, and they'll start using their own power, and they'll start demanding that they need the power to fix this problem. And I've seen it, and it's a sad fucking thing that happens in history. Happened in Italy, happened in Japan, happened in Panama, happened in Spain.
I
happened in
welcome
Germany.
Comrade Mitch McConnell to the Socialist Collective. But, okay, I'll leave it here. I do want to have more conversations on this general topic, on this ideology, and like how that interacts. I feel lactoid. I feel this, but maybe I'm wrong, right? That like we have like a reasonable disagreement that can be overcome. That I feel like if we talked long enough, that you could maybe understand me better as like where I'm coming from and why I feel that this way. Maybe I can understand you a bit better. Um, that yeah, yeah. So I'd like to do that. And uh, with Scott, I'd really like to. Uh, I guess I want to know more about why you think these things are so dangerous, but that would require a bit more of a nuanced breakdown, like piece by piece of this ideology, so that I can understand the danger in your eyes, because I recognize that you feel there is a danger. You legitimately feel that way, right? And I don't think you're like a liar or you're doing this for grifting. I don't think you're grifting or anything like that. I understand you feel like there's a real danger.
I'd be a
Um,
terrible
and
fucking grifter if I was trying
Not
to
a
be
grifter like
fucking
Prime.
and
yeah,
cap.
grifter like
And
Prime.
the and cap on these places, like Jesus
Yeah.
Christ, man.
Yeah,
The standards I'm fucking held to are insane.
yeah. But yeah, I'd want to have a deeper understanding of like your view of this, because I think we get distracted by like specific examples, right? Like the book, the Long Boy book, and we don't dig into why you specifically hate this overall quote unquote ideology.
So
But
I
anyway,
mean, like,
that's
I'll
fine,
be
fine.
really quick as like a little teaser, if you will, if you ever want to talk about this. The reason specific examples are really important is that you have to understand Freirean education as a model. Remember, Paulo Freire is the number one cited social scientist in that exists. Period. Right? There are no social scientists with more thing unless you consider psychologists social scientists. Then there are a couple. And that's fine. But what you have to understand is a generative concept, generative themes, right? The idea is that you place forward conflicts and things that are like shocking, and then what you do is you begin the kind of like the decodifying, decodifying, and the decodifying process is actually a codifying process. It's full of contradictions, but it's fine. That's how leftists are, right? It's in its own purpose, but it's not like I'm even saying anything crazy there, right? It's like they need to be synthesized, right? And so you're moving from a blurry picture to a sharp image, and that blurry picture to a sharp image is understanding yourself and seeing yourself within the generative theme. And then as that process of oppressor and oppressed begins to place you within those pieces, and as that picture becomes clear, you finally get to conscientiation, where you now think critically. Thinking critically, which is, we used to say thinking rationally. We conservatives just gobbled up critical thinking when actually it's a Marxian term. And so we think critically. We see the world as oppressor and oppressed, and we see our place within the dynamic as either oppressor or oppressed individual, and can now fight back against that system and move on to the next concept. So these specific shocking things are important, because that's how the process of indoctrination begins.
Okay. Thank you so much. To all of you.
Sorry.
No. It's fine. It's fine. It's fine.
No, I know it's fucking 12:30 at night. You're like, Jesus fuck, dude. All right.
I was, oh, you took the words out of my mouth. But I appreciate you, Scott. And for all the things that you do. Thanks all for being here. I'm gonna have an outro. We'll start with our friend Lactoid. Lactoid, thank you for coming through.
Yeah, no, thank you, Prime, for having me. Thank you all for debating me, and thank you for giving me time to go up in my soapbox and announce my beliefs to the world. If you like those beliefs, or if you like the arguments, or if you like my deer that I have, you can find me at Lactoid TV on Twitch, Twitter, and YouTube. Thanks.
Unfortunately, I walked in like halfway during that conversation. I didn't get the start of this, and then I didn't get to interrogate the whole thing with the deer. But as I understand it, Lactoid.
I killed a deer. I killed a deer. Yeah.
That is the
Okay.
deer that he shot behind him. So easy kill.
No, the one I got was way bigger and better than this one. Trust me. Way. It wasn't even close.
Much bigger picture.
Okay.
Fucking
Understood.
button buck is what you shot. Don't lie.
It's a 9 point. Not bad. Come on, for the first time.
Oh, that's actually pretty good for your first time. That's awesome.
Okay. All right. Well, you should go to Lactoid's channel to celebrate his murder. Let's go to our friend Scott. Thank you, Scott, for everything.
Scott or Fabian Liberty? No, of course. For Fabian Liberty, you can find me on YouTube or Rumble. You can find me on Twitch and other places too. You can find me on Twitter. Wink, wink. Michael Skotsky is my booker. Anyways, yeah. So in terms of these two topics, I don't want to talk about the topics at all. All I want to say is, the first topic, talking about censorship, is something that I appreciate you, Prime, for doing, because it is dangerous to do on your channel, and we all know that. And it is something that gets you demonetized and fucked over. Even if you have the right opinion, it doesn't matter because it's not a fucking human being that's selecting it anyways. It's just a keyword search algorithm that hears fucking COVID 10 times or whatever, and then just goes like, oh, fucking, we know what to do with this one. Demonetize instantly. Anybody that's put anything up on YouTube knows, because the moment it's processing and you hit like yes to automate to what monetization, it's like it takes like 10 seconds to be like demonetized. And you're like, really, 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 really? So for that, yes. And for the second one, I might have called you a groomer a couple times. You might have muted me or whatever, but I'm glad that we fought through it, because once we got all the way to the end, right, we recognized that, like, yeah, we do kind of have the same opinion. It's our understanding of the role of governance and the process of governance that is wildly different. Not necessarily most of those values. Even when you were like, I personally don't think that kids shouldn't have access to these things, which I find to be, questionable. You still got to a point where you're like, yeah, parents have a right to make sure that certain things aren't being shown or forced upon their children. You're just worried about the way that government is utilizing that. And so, like, I appreciate that, like, these conversations need to be had, because more often than not, I think we actually do have similar values and goals and desires for our children and for our society. We just drastically disagree about how to go about creating that society, and what laws and institutions need to be scrapped or reformed or made differently to get there. So I'm glad that we were able to beat through that, because I don't think you're a fucking groomer, but I think you support policies that are.
Oh my God! High praise from Scott. Don't make me blush, man.
But you're still a grifter.
You're black. You can't blush. Come on.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Thank you for that.
There's a little bit of purple sometimes that shows up if you're real good.
Thanks so much, friend.
It's not even racist. It's true.
Thanks so much. Let's go to our friend Corey. Thanks. Thank you also for jumping in on this.
Yeah, thank you so much for inviting me. Always grateful. This was, great. I learned quite a bit. I also appreciated Lactoid's inform me on the Constitution and what his opinion on the law being struck down, because that's definitely something that I wouldn't have known on my own. And I was also entertained, and I think we learned an important lesson overall, where if Prime leaves his computer, it's just like disastrous, where his computer just will protest and not let him stream, and then he makes some mistakes in the prompt. Just like, yeah, never leave your computer is a take home
Why
message.
put him on blast like that?
Yeah,
Well,
this is.
Ain't nobody had to know he made a mistake on the prompt.
I mean, it's not really like I say that like it wasn't really a mistake, and I made it clear. I'm the one. I think I'm the one that
Throwing
pointed
him
it
under the
out.
bus like that.
No,
You
no.
know what I mean? Like,
I mean,
in Discord DMs
it
now?
was.
Like, come on.
It wasn't
now.
a complete disaster, guys. I mean,
Yeah.
it was bad, but that was a complete disaster.
I think I'm the one that pointed out the mistake, and I totally was transparent that I think this is the first mistake that Prime ever made in my experience. So like his track record, I think is like 99.999%. So
This is true.
like I think there's
This
a really
is
good
true.
high success rate.
Thanks so
But yeah,
much.
as always, this is great. And yeah, you can find me on Twitch, twitch.tv CoreyCampbell84, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube, it's Corey Campbell. And Gibbs, Scott, Lactoid, always a pleasure, and love you, Prime.
Thanks so much, friend, and love you too. And Admiral Gibbs, thank you also for being here and for being unapologetically you. Every time. Like, it's actually really, I'll keep saying this, like, I love that I have a conservative here, like a straight up, like, not like a fake or libertarian like Lactoid, but like a straight up conservative here. So thanks for coming through.
Yeah, I always enjoy doing these panels. It's always fun. Yeah, I think you do a good job of hosting, fair panels when you give people a good thing to have discourse. And I think that's good for the good for politics in general to be able to have discourse. Like I said, I feel like discourse is key, and censorship is really bad. When we have censorship, it stops that discourse, and just like when people with little man syndrome have to resort to name calling or personal attacks like bitch or whatever in order to think they won an argument after they don't really have an argument. I that also stifles discourse. It's a form of censorship as well, and it's a weak one. But yeah, you can find it. That's basically all I got. Find me at Admiral Games everywhere.
I was, now,
Shots fired, bro.
if we go any farther
No
than
offense,
that,
though, but
yeah.
No,
Yeah.
no offense.
If we go any farther than that, that'll be another conversation onto
No
itself.
offense.
Shout out to my man Doobie who was here previously. Shout out to Mooncake who was here previously. I'm gonna rate out. I'm gonna rate out because this has been too much for too little. Lactoid, are you still streaming for a little bit?
I'm still so I'm gonna be heading out right after this. So
Oh,
I mean, you
God.
can here's what you can rate on to me, and then I can send it to somebody, and then it looks way more impressive if you wanted to do that.
Okay, all right, let's do that. And shout out to my friend Lactoid, who's just really always kind to his community. And a person I think everyone should be able to if you can't deal with Lactoid's arguments, then I think you're being dishonest. Something like that. Oh, there you go. I like it.
Those were words.
That's a very high compliment. I thank you.
Yeah. So I'm sending this raid off. I'm sorry, it's really late at night. I'm just gonna